This is Jocko Podcast number 251 with Echo Charles and me, Jocko Willink. Good evening, Echo.
Good evening.
And also joining us tonight is my brother Leif Babin from Podcast 11, first guest ever on the podcast, 34, 65, 114, and 138. And obviously Leif was in Task Unit Bruiser as the Charlie Platoon Commander in the Battle of Ramadi. We wrote Extreme Ownership. We wrote The Dichotomy of Leadership together. And we have a leadership consultancy called Echelon Front. And I, at one point in my life, gave him the book that I've been reviewing for the last couple episodes that I wrote the new forward to. The book is called About Face. And we're going to talk a little bit about that, but then we're going somewhere else. Leif, thanks for coming back on, man.
Thanks for having me.
Last time you were on was 2018.
14 August 2018. The world has changed drastically since then.
That's kind of crazy. It's crazy that as much as I see you, we just didn't coordinate for another podcast in over 2 years.
That's apparently...
Did you say everything you had to say on the first 5?
Apparently so. That's just the way it is.
You were telling me about Face in the Battle of Ramadi. Me kind of saying, hey, check this out. Check out this section. What were you thinking when I'm reading you about like the South Vietnamese army and how corrupt they were or whatever, like all these different examples?
Yeah, I mean, I thought it was so awesome that this new, this new book with the new forward written by you, for About Face, the new version of it that's out with the new forward. And I remember distinctly coming back from operations in Ramadi multiple times, probably at least 4 or 5 different times I could remember, where I'd like walk into your office in the Tactical Operations Center at the Camp Margolese, and you'd say, hey, listen to this. And I was like, okay. And you'd bust out the book, you'd open it up to like a highlighted section, read the section, and it was mind blowing because it was just like, it was written about the operation that I was just on like an hour ago. And instead it was written 40 years before about Vietnam. And it was pretty eerie. And I never realized all the influences until later when you gave me a copy of the book, which is the one thing that you gave to me and you gave to Seth Stone, the Delta Platoon Commander, when we finished Task Unit Bruiser. We came home. I still have that book. It's dated, January 2007. We'd just been home for 2 months at that point. But now going through that book, I realized like where you got renaming Task Unit Bruiser, all those things. Like there was so many things that came from that. So it had so much influence on you and through you on me and everybody in Task Unit Bruiser, and then every generation afterward.
That's crazy. Now, in the book About Face, there's 2 quotes that always bothered me. Here's the first one. Men will do in battle what they have been in the habit of doing in training. General Bruce Clark, one of the U.S. Army's greatest training generals, had written in his then recently published Guidelines for the Leader and Commander. So that's the first quote that bothered me. The second quote that bothered me was this quote. The troops responded well to hard, hands-on, repetitive, but still interesting work. They may not have wanted to go to Vietnam, but they sure as hell didn't want to die there, so they even flocked to off-duty classes like Recondo. Meanwhile, I established the requirement that all officers and NCOs in the battalion read and carry on their person General Bruce Clark's Guidelines for the Leader and Commander. As far as I was concerned, the finest little handbook on leadership and training ever written. And adopt as their own philosophy the one that I'd learned from a 5x7 card, which I still had, issued to me in Clark's 7th Army in Germany, which stated, an organization does well only those things the boss checks, end quote. So why did those 2 quotes bother me? They didn't bother me because I didn't agree with them, obviously. They bothered me because I could never find this specific book called Guidelines for the Leader and Commander. And I always searched for it. I would look for, and these days you can pretty much find anything online, especially like a lot of the old manuals that I read old Army manuals. They've been out of print for a long time, but you can go find a PDF. Somebody uploaded it. This thing has been nowhere forever. And here I was learning from this book that Colonel Hackworth wrote, but I could never find the book that Hackworth learned from. And that did not make me happy. So who was this guy, General Bruce Clark? He was in World War I, World War II, Korea. He enlisted in 1917, ended up going to West Point. Hope you don't hold that against him, Leif.
Good to go. I turned down my appointment to West Point, but it's a great place.
You got into
Proud
both,
to be in
huh?
Army school.
Look at you, overachiever.
I had to go to the SEAL route, man. That was the goal.
That's a rough gamble, right?
It was a rough gamble, and it was a very poor gamble when I graduated and I didn't get selected for the SEAL program. I could tell you, I was like, I should have gone to West Point. I'd be in the Army. I'd have all those opportunities in front of me. But
that is the worst luck that it happens that the SEAL teams is in the Navy, and if you want to be a SEAL and you don't make it into the SEAL teams, you're in the Navy because you probably don't want to have the type of job that a regular Navy dude has if you want to be in the SEAL teams. Would you concur?
Oh, definitely.
I mean, if you want to be in the SEAL teams, that means you want to be shooting a machine gun and running around in the streets or the jungle or whatever. You don't want to be on a ship, working in an engine room or driving a ship
standing bridge watch
or whatever. And those are cool jobs too. Different people like different jobs, but those are two almost totally different types of jobs. Whereas, if you tried for special forces and you didn't make it, you'd still be an infantry guy, and that's still the similar thing. But you just rolled the dice big time.
I did, but it worked out. And, you got to trust. In fact, had I gotten selected for the SEAL program right out of the academy in 1998 when I graduated, I'd have never been a task unit bruiser. I would have not been Charlie Platoon Commander. I would have done my OIC probably at least a year or 2 or 3 prior to that, as a lot of the guys who were my same year group. So, that's the good Lord has a plan, and you got to just trust in that plan. And had I gotten selected for Marine Corps, I obviously never had a chance to be in the SEAL teams either. So, look, West Point's an awesome school, man. It was a really, really agonizing decision for me because I got picked up for West Point in like. It was like probably January, February of my senior year, and I found out I got an appointment, so I accepted it, and then I didn't find out until like April that I got into Navy. So it was, it was a big gamble for sure. But hey, man, it's an awesome career. Obviously, there's a great rivalry between West Point and Army and Navy. Everybody knows the football games, but I am one of the things we're most proud of, obviously, in Task Unit Bruiser was being the 1-1 AD Army SEALs, as they called us. And so good on General Clark. One thing that I just wanted to say when you read that quote, I'm fascinated, to listen to this as well, because I have used that quote, an organization does well, only those things the boss checks, probably 1,000 times since teaching the junior officer training course up through what we do now with Echelon Front. And I did not realize it came out of this book.
I was going to say, don't you usually attribute it to Hackworth?
I was attributed to Hackworth, yeah. I think I just misremembered that he obviously was giving credit to General Clark, and I clearly did not remember that, and I've not done that right.
Yeah. So he went to West Point. So enlisted World War I, went to West Point, World War II, commanded the 4th Armored Division in Patton's 3rd Army, Battle of Aracourt, Battle of the Bulge, Distinguished Service Cross, and 3 Silver Stars. Also in Korea. Ended up with 45 or so years of service. Not only leading troops, but also he oversaw a bunch of training schools and training commands. Died in 1988 at age 86. And I wanted this book. I searched for this book for years. I wrote an email to the publisher. This publisher still exists. I'm going to call him out right now because I'm sure someone will reach out to him. I think it's Stackpole Books. They still exist. And we've covered other books of theirs on this podcast because they print a lot of military type books. I think The Clay Pigeons of St. Lo, we covered that on this podcast, and a few others that are in the queue. I reached out to him and sent him an email. Hey, I'm looking for this book. I see that you used to publish it. Nothing, never heard, nothing back. And then like you said, the Lord works in mysterious ways. The About Face, the new version comes out, and I search on Amazon once a month. I'll search and see it, because they would have this book. They'd have it listed in there. That's how I knew the publisher was. But they would have it in there and not available, not available, not available. For years, it's been not available. It popped up. It says available, one copy. $300, bro. $300. This is, and I'm only holding a photocopy right now. It was $300. This thing is 117 pages. It's like, 6 by 11, or it's small. It's this little book. It showed up in a little tiny envelope. I was super stoked. And as you might imagine, like you said, it's filled with lessons, filled with the obvious roots of Hackworth's theories around training and leadership, which I stole, as you already rightfully accused me of stealing many things from Hackworth, as I fully admit all the time, that I stole, I used, passed on to everyone I could. Still try and pass on. Still try and pass on in About Face. Still trying to pass in what we do at Echelon Front. Try and pass on these lessons. So,
you know what? I don't think you can actually use the word steal, because they're freely given.
Yeah.
In the same way that, like, when people are like, hey, do you mind if we, like, talk about extreme ownership with our team? We're like, no, I actually don't mind. In fact, that's what we wrote the book for. I'm sure that's why Hack wrote the About Face. And I'm sure, obviously, that's why General Clark wrote what he wrote. So it's not stealing, it's freely given. And I think as we have often said, like, we didn't learn anything new. We just maybe package it a little bit differently, or use a different term than maybe others use.
It's always good when it's pretty common for me to do an initial client call with a company, and they'll be give me a brief on their company, and they're like, oh, our company values are blah 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 blah, extreme ownership, and they're like, hey, we hope you don't mind. We're like, exact same thing. I say, you can't steal what's free. So and I try and give Hackworth credit, but I guess you're right. Can't steal what's free. But what we can do is we can take it and we can try and pass it on. So without further ado, I present to you, at long last, Guidelines for the Leader and Commander. I'll have to show it to you later. There's a little signature. I don't have it in a photocopy. It's written. There's a little, somebody gave it to someone. Someone gave it to, like, the command sergeant major or something like that. All right, so here we go. Dedicated to the ground combat soldier. The paramount concern of the Army is the ground combat soldier. He is the focal point of all our efforts, organizing, equipping, training, sustaining, and supporting him so that he can perform his indispensable role in combat is the Army role. The role is equally significant in any kind of war, hot or cold. It is just as important in general war as it is in limited war. For our nation to entertain any notion to the contrary would be dangerous. The danger could be social as well as military. More than any other category of personnel in the armed forces, the ground combat soldier comes from the general populace. He is the private citizen under arms, the clenched fist of his people. I think I'm just rolling with that from now on.
That is the greatest description of a combat.
Yes.
Of a combat soldier I've ever heard in my life.
The clenched fist of the people.
Why is this the first time I'm hearing this? That's the one thing I'm just remiss about.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Me too.
We could have put that up as like a poster for Tasking a Bruiser.
I think I used, and you may have heard me use this. In fact, I know you did. The sword of destruction. I use that to describe sort of what our methodology was, especially in cleaning out insurgents, and how, hey, everyone wants to make friends and win the hearts and minds, and that's all definitely important. But that really comes, and this is when I use this line that would come after the sword of destruction has been wielded on the insurgents or the bad guys. I think the fist of the people is better. We're going with it.
The clenched fist.
The clenched fist of the people. Back to the book. It is by no idle chance in the history of mankind that the course of democracy parallels the importance accorded to the ground combat soldier in the military forces of nations. It is no exaggeration to say that the basic freedoms we now enjoy are closely related to his ascending importance on the battlefields since the Battle of Crécy. Nor is it an exaggeration, in my opinion, to say that the preservation of those freedoms will continue to be oriented by his place in the sun. Only when men from all of the people are willing and ready to fight and die for freedom does freedom have meaning for them. Only then does democracy thrive. That is the inexorable lesson of history. These are important things to be reading right around this time in the world, because what percentage of the populace actually is in the military? 1%. So there's not a lot of people that seem to step up and be ready and willing. And what does that mean? That means they don't understand what the price is. They don't understand what the cost is. And what he's saying here is freedom's only safe when there's people that are, when there's all people. He's saying all people, by the way. All people have to be ready and willing. It's heavy.
Well, you also have to think about his perspective, though, right? I mean, I think in America today, obviously we've been at war for a long time, since 9/11, but there isn't an existential threat in the way that he was living with World War I. You've got this expanding empire. Now World War II, you've got the Japanese and Germans. I mean, there's the world was truly at stake, and it was everybody, all hands on deck, even those that couldn't serve, who weren't medically qualified or whatever. Like they're doing everything from blood drives to collecting tires, all that kind of stuff is going on back here. Bond drives, to
Liberty
support the
Gardens.
troops. Yeah. The Rosie the Riveter. I mean, ladies out there turning wrenches and building planes and tanks and all that stuff. So I think that was, I mean, our country hasn't experienced that probably since World War II. But I think living through that probably gave him unique perspective.
This also ties in. Continuing on, beguiled by the mechanical marvels of an age, it is easy for people to forget the true character of the ground combat soldiers in war. When free men have been so beguiled in the past, they have slipped back into slavery. For the ability of the ground combat soldier to play his part in the social scheme of things depends upon the part he is given in the military scheme of things. Again, we can very easily think about the fact that this war is a technical thing, and you don't have to put boots on the ground, and that whole idea that technology can eliminate war. And you and I were talking the other day that there's some people that, hey, God bless them, they have a positive attitude that we as a species can evolve to a point where, we don't have war anymore. And that's a very positive thought. I think we would all agree that would be a great thing. It's probably highly unrealistic, because there's always going to be somebody, no matter how nice you are, there's always going to be somebody that's going to try and take a couple extra dollars from you, Echo Charles.
Yes, sir. You're
going to have to defend yourself.
I understand.
Even if you're super nice.
Yes.
You might have to fight.
I understand.
I don't think you can't study history and believe that we're on some greater trajectory and mankind is above war or conflict or evil or darkness. And that's the thing I love most about this podcast is reminding people of the darkness. You can't appreciate the light if you don't know the darkness. And I think that's the most powerful thing. And I think only if you experience what General Clark has experienced do you fully get and understand that.
I answered a question on the podcast a long time ago. A guy said, you keep talking about training jiu-jitsu, but I don't even like to fight. Why should I train jiu-jitsu? And I said, if you don't like to fight, you are actually the premier person that needs to train jiu-jitsu. And if you don't like war and you don't want to go to war, then you should train and prepare and be ready to go to war, and then hopefully you won't have to. And if you do, it'll be swift.
The other thing that quote reminds me of is that we get asked, how often do we get asked about, talk about some training or Bud story, from the SEAL basic training program. And we don't even talk about that stuff because I think people, I mean, I'm trying to explain to people that the physical nature of combat operations is so much more, more difficult than anything in training. And then the emotional,
I was going to say
aspect of that as well.
The physical, yes, but the mental and emotional isn't even a comparable thing, right? Like it's not a comparable thing to say, well, I was really wet and cold during SEAL training compared to I was waiting to suck start an IED 17 nights in a row. Like that's definitely more mental stress than, hey, you're going to have to go hit the surf again. Who cares?
No question about that. But what I'm talking about, the physical nature of it. So we're talking about the ground combat soldier here. And this is, I'm thinking about, one of our SEALs. I mean, you certainly know him well. It was one of my most awesome guys in Charlie Platoon. Super, just a physical, stud, awesome dude who's like going down with heat exhaustion and like can't continue forward. And I'm having like, give me your machine gun, take my, my rifle, my M4. We got to move, man. We can't stay here. We're gonna get hammered. We knew we were gonna get ambushed at any second. So it was just the physical nature of that. Like I can't physically continue because I'm carrying, 80 pounds of gear on this patrol and it's 117 degrees right now. And I got a little behind the hydration curve because we've been out here for 48 hours doing this kind of stuff. And I'm going down with heat exhaustion, So I think that's something that people, when you're talking about technology and riding in vehicles or flying an aircraft or shooting missiles, and there's just no getting around the guys carrying a rucksack, a heavy rucksack with gear and going on foot. And Ramadi was unique like that for us because if you drove into those areas, you were going to get blowed up. And it was a good reminder of the physical nature of war. And I think, what he's talking about with the ground combat soldier is exactly right.
It's just savage. Like it's just, whenever you put on, like at the beginning of land warfare training and you haven't put on a rucksack in 2 months because you were coming back from deployment and then you go on leave and whatever, and you get out to the desert warfare training facility and you put your gear on for the first time and you're like, yeah, it's one of those things where the first 20 minutes you're just thinking this completely sucks, and then it just sucks so bad that the suck kind of numbs out. But it's just savage. It's just a constant level of pain.
And no matter how good of shape you thought you were, I mean, that guy I was just talking about was in awesome shape. He was a great, physical specimen, awesome dude, trained hard all the time. One of the best SEALs I know. It happened to me. I remember Johnny Kim, us patrolling into position. Johnny Kim was like, here's our corpsman. He was like, hey, Leif, you doing okay? I'm like, I don't know, man. I was like super pale, and he could see that I was, and I was dehydrated, and we're already smoked. We've been up for 24 hours, so he gave me an IV, and to just help me recuperate. And we were in good shape. I mean, we trained hard. We were already acclimatized. It's just, it was hard. It was physically difficult. All those emotional things are absolutely the case, but it was physically hard. And probably the best, Dave Burke talks about this too.
Good deal, Dave.
Good deal, Dave Burke. Running with a pallet of water between where you were back at Cop Falcon. We were in a sniper overwatch position 300 yards down the street, carrying on an Israeli stretcher with pallets of water and MREs, which probably weighed 200 pounds, and running as fast as we could with that and all our combat gear for 300 yards. Dave Burke was just, he was like, hey, we're like, let's go. And we're just running. And it was awesome.
I did a delivery run to you guys down there.
You did, yeah. You brought some water too, because we were just baking on the rooftop and nothing to hide under.
Even just sitting there baking on a rooftop for 3 days, just getting dehydrated. Everything sucks. As to quote Tony, everything sucks.
Everything sucks. Nothing worse.
All right, back to the book. It will be a sorry day for all mankind in this supersonic nuclear age of ours should the ground combat soldier ever be deprived of his rightful place in the hearts and minds and military forces of his people. In our efforts to avert this danger, a one army attitude must pervade all ranks. The ground combat soldier is not a guardsman, nor a regular, nor a reservist, nor a selectee. He is simply the American fighting man on the one army team. I appeal to every member of the team, civilian and military, to give his cause the enthusiastic support merited by its vital importance to our country. Bruce C. Clark, General, U.S. Army. There's the intro. We're already off to a good start.
I'm the next copy that's up for $300. I'm buying it.
I got to figure out what I'm going to do. I'm sure Stackpole will reach out, but if they don't, I'm just going to publish this thing.
Jocko Publishing.
Jocko Publishing is coming in hot with the PDF. Publisher's forward. These guidelines were written by a leader and commander out of the wealth of experience gained by him in leading and commanding troops from a squad to an army group. These guidelines were prepared for the benefit of other leaders and commanders in the U.S. Army in order that they, in turn, may make use of his counsel and experience. So as you said, he wrote this for us. General Bruce C. Clark has probably had more command duty at more command levels than any other officer in the U.S. Army, living or dead. He served more than 40 years in all grades from private to 4-star general. Known as the most effective trainer of modern times in the U.S. Army, as well as an outstanding combat commander, General Clark here specifies the methods he has used with outstanding success in management, training, in soldier management, and in leadership and generalship. What do you think? Not exactly a lightweight?
Not exactly a lightweight.
And there's a picture in here that says the ground combat soldier, the focal point of all our efforts. You know what's cool? Go ahead.
Well, I was just gonna say, as you're saying that, I'm sitting here, I'm thinking about my experience in Ramadi, and our combat experience, 3 deployments to Iraq, is just absolutely nothing compared to what someone who fought in World War I, World War II, and Korea. I mean, it's just. I'm so humble when I read about people's experiences and realize, I thought I saw some combat, and that was significant for the Iraq War. It's like, man, it's absolutely nothing. Even the physical hardships I'm describing, just pale in comparison, to battles and just what General Clark experienced, and so many have experienced throughout the ages.
We often joke about the fact that just what we experienced compared to what these guys went through. When we had Dean Ladd on the podcast, who got gut shot rolling into Tarawa 500 yards from the beach, there's no possible way he should survive that. And by the way, what was really crazy is that was like, after he got done with that, he had already done one of the other islands. He goes into Tarawa, gets gut shot. 2 of the Marines disobey all orders and actually grab him and bring him back to a boat. He gets somehow miraculously saved. He goes back to Hawaii, and then 6 months later, he's back going on another island campaign. It's like, you got gut shot, but you survived. It's cool. You're in the game. Yeah. America, what? All right, Chapter 1. Part 1 is leadership and command. Chapter 1, command responsibilities. Introduction. When an individual assumes command of a unit, large or small, he steps into one of the most interesting and the most challenging assignments a member of the armed forces can have. Here is a job into which a man can sink his teeth. Here is a job where initiative, originality, hard work, fidelity, and human understanding can pay off in the richest dividends. This chapter includes many matters that are connected with the ability of the commander to train his unit. So it's interesting. Extreme ownership, we close out by saying this is the most challenging endeavor a human can. Leadership is the most challenging endeavor a human faces, and therefore the most rewarding. I swear we didn't steal that from him, even though he just said the exact same thing, even though he wrote it a lot earlier than us.
You know what it is though? Like as when we talk with leaders all the time, and they say, hey, we're already doing a lot of these things you're talking about. And what the reason for that is because there's what works and there's what doesn't work. Mm-hmm. So no matter what you call it, we gave a little framework around extreme ownership, the laws of combat. But if you're in a leadership position, you're gonna figure out what actually works. And that makes me think about this. You talk about psychology a lot, and not in like psychological terms and like clinical terms, but in like trying to get people to do what you need them to do to accomplish the mission to win. And that's exactly it.
Human nature. It took me, I don't know how many podcasts, must have been around, I don't know, but at some point I said, yeah, this is a podcast about human nature. Really, that's what it's about. It's about human nature. And where human nature is most revealed is in war or in atrocities or human suffering or human struggle. That's when human nature is revealed. And we had this conversation, and I don't know when, but I remember telling you and Stoner and being like, hey, look, when we go on deployment, people are going to go crazy. And look, I didn't mean, hey, these people are going to, but when you talk about senior leaders or, people are going to start feeling pressure and people do crazy things. And I saw that from my first deployment to Iraq where I was thinking, wait a second, this is just like, people are going crazy. So that's something that happens. It's just human nature is revealed. And if you're, let's say you're nervous about things. Let's say you're a nervous type of person. You're scared of something. What's that going to do in combat? It's just going to get worse. Let's say you're worried about things. What's going to happen in combat? You're going to be even more worried. Let's say you have a tendency to focus on things that don't really matter. You're going to do that even more in combat. It's like everything, your human nature gets exposed.
To quote you, it's combat is life amplified and intensified.
True.
And I think that's 100% true. It's 100% true. And it's like that friend that tells you like they go crazy when they drink, and you're like, no, you're actually just, when you drink, you actually are crazy, and you're able to keep it contained until you put the alcohol in you.
No, you actually are crazy, and it just comes out. Yes, very similar. Here we go. Back to the book. So you want a command. How often have we heard an officer say, I'd do anything to get a command? Have you ever wondered if he really meant it? Have you ever wondered if he really would make a good commander? We have often heard the expression, a good commander is born, not made. This is interesting. So he's saying, hey, we often hear a good commander is born, not made. You know how nowadays they say, actually anyone can be a leader. I shouldn't say it in such a sarcastic voice. People say, look, anyone can be a leader. You can learn. What I talked about in leadership strategy and tactics is it's both. Like you're going to get some natural qualities for sure. Some other things you're going to have to work in. So he says, we often heard the expression, a good commander is born, not made. And he says, this is not entirely true. By exercising certain principles, the vast majority of officers can become good commanders. There you go. He agrees with me. Let us see if considering the following 20 questions will provide us with some guidelines. If the answers to these questions are yes, the potential commander's statement is sincere and he should fight to get it and should be given a command. He will never have an assignment that will give him greater satisfaction or one that will enable him to contribute more to the Army and to our country. So here's the 20 questions. Is the officer seeking command duty willing to devote all hours of day and night, 7 days a week to his command? Is his wife willing to take an active role in helping to make a happy Army community in their unit area? Is his family willing to be secondary, if necessary, to the company, battalion, group, regiment, combat command, brigade, or division? I'm so glad he wrote that, because I still have people that will call me out because I'll say, hey, when I was in the teams came first. The teams were more important than my family. And I'm sorry, but you have to take care of your guys. You have to.
You mean when you would say things like, I'm going to go home and see this woman and these kids that live at my house?
Yes, I do.
And just for the record, Jaco's a loving husband and an awesome dad, but we knew that was a joke, so it was pretty funny.
Is he willing to learn, teach, stress, and live with the fundamentals necessary to make his unit good and believe his great talents for bigger things are not to be wasted? Does he like to be with young people? Can he live with their energy, points of view, and problems they create? Is he willing to take the hard knocks that come from carrying the responsibilities for the failures of his subordinates? Do we get to pass these things on, Echo Charles?
I don't think so.
No, we don't.
Sounds a little like extreme ownership.
It certainly does. Can he juggle at the same time all the balls of training, maintenance, test, administration, inspections, property, communications, messes, supplies, athletics, marksmanship, discipline, and public relations without dropping any of them?
Prioritize and execute.
Is he able to do many things concurrently rather than being a consecutive doer? Can he manage a complex job? Can he receive and carry out orders? Can he follow orders as well as give them? So number 8 there, is he able to do many things concurrently rather than being a consecutive doer? Opposite of prioritize and execute. It's like I need to be able to do multiple things at once. Here's what's interesting. I highlighted that and I was thinking about it as I read through the rest of the book. He starts to go into a delineation and a bifurcation between the title of the book, leader and commander. And what he starts talking about is when you're a leader, squad leader, platoon leader, at company, it changes to commander. And now what you have to do is realize that you've got to be able to task people to do things, right? You got to be able to delegate. And so as a leader, it's like prioritize and execute. As a commander, yes, you're going to prioritize and execute, but you're going to prioritize, delegate, and then have other people doing multiple things at the same time. I mean, when we would go on an operation, for example, did we say, okay, right now we're only going to set security. We're not going to do sensitive site exploitation. We're not going to do a search right now. We're only going to set security. No, we set security. Then we start interrogating prisoners. We start searching. We start organizing. There's multiple things that you're doing at the same time. So that's different than, hey, we're getting attacked with multiple problems right now. We need to focus on the biggest problem. And it also starts to lean into talking about delegation and how, and I've always said, even when I explain prioritize and execute, I say these words. Once you've got that first problem solved, or you've got it going in the right direction, then you can move on to the next problem. So if we're getting a contact from the south and I go, Leif, take your platoon, go start knocking those guys out, I don't even worry about you anymore. I'm good. Like, I might check in with you 5 minutes later to make sure you're good. But meanwhile, what am I doing? I'm saying, Seth, all right, continue the assault on this building, right? It's not like I'm saying, everyone online. No. If you can handle it, you handle it. Another way I used to explain this is, let's say you're building a building and you've got to get one of the rooms electrical done because they're going to put drywall in that room today. And you've got 10 electricians on site and the room is small. Does that mean you take all 10 of your electricians and you pack them into that room and put them all to work? No, because it's there. You don't need that many. You need 4 guys in there. That's the fastest and most efficient you can get it done. So you take those 4 guys, you put them in that room, you take the other 6 guys and they can start doing something else. You don't just say, that's the number one priority. Everyone just sit in there and do nothing. 4 guys do it and everyone else watch them. No, you handle the problem, you get it moving in the right direction, then you move on to the next. Then you can take the remaining resources and apply them to the next thing.
That makes me think about target fixation, which is what we talk about with prioritize and execute, which it's really easy. Like, this is the priority, get so focused on that. But I mean, the example you just gave, like, Leif, take your platoon and hit that target to the south, and Seth, you continue the assault. Like, you wouldn't even say Seth continue the assault because he's gonna do it. And you talk about how your greatest goal was to go out on operations and not say anything. And I used to think that, like, that was like, I wanted to be the leader, like John Wayne Sands of Iwo Jima with my helmet on sideways and my gun at high port as my finger is pointing, like the classic army man with a finger pointing and the leader with his gun at high port pointing to the sky. And I so many times Ramadi in the middle of a big gunfight where you're like, I'm not saying anything at all. My team's doing what they need to do. The fire team leaders are running their guys. The squad leaders are running their guys. The leading petty officer's doing his thing. The chief's doing his thing. I can think 2 steps ahead. So, I mean, you have to be able to do that. That's decentralized command. And when you got a team that's running that, then you can handle 12 or 15 problems at the same time because each of the teams is doing their thing.
I was talking to a client today, and he was talking to me about how he sometimes has meetings. He'll have 8 blocked meetings a day or 10 that he has to go to. And he gets done. He's like, yeah, I know I got this meeting. And I had him pull up his calendar, and he's talking me through each one of these meetings. And I said, what's wrong with you? Like, what is wrong with you that each one of your teams needs to talk to you every single day? That's crazy to me. That's not decentralized command. That is centralized command. So you aren't giving the people the right direction. They're not hearing what you're saying. They don't have the guidelines. You haven't given them the trust. You've been an easy, but there's a bunch of reasons why it could be happening, but it shouldn't be happening. You shouldn't have to attend those meetings all day long, every day, because that's not decentralized command. It's not efficient. What happens if you aren't in those meetings? Well, the guys won't know what to do. Okay, well, there's your problem. Give them the guidance and let them run.
And if you're down in the weeds trying to solve those problems, which is what you're doing in the meetings, then you can't. Who's actually taking a step back? I mean, that's when you wrote in the decentralized command chapter in Extreme Ownership that, I mean, that would have been a horrible blue on blue situation that happened if you were down in the weeds trying to tell Stone or Seth Stone how to run his platoon. That's just the way it is. So I think that's your job as the leader should be to take a step back and think strategically. The next step after that, and you can if you're down in the weeds making things happen. But you can also see where people need help, and you could step in temporarily when you take a step back, and you got teams actually handling those problems, which you did all the time as a ground force commander. When you're like, come over, you'd walk in the house after we call target security, walk in the house, what's going on? Check in with me. I'd give you a quick update on what's going on. You'd kind of. Then you'd move to kind of where you were needed, where people might need more resources, or hey, we need some more guys outside. Can you guys spare a fire team? Or hey, we need more guys in the house. Let's bring a fire team in, or whatever it may be.
Yep. Got to do that. Continuing down this list, can he receive and carry out orders? Can he follow orders as well as give them? Can he stand tough competition from like units and still retain a spirit of cooperation and teamwork with him? Enemies outside the wire. Is he physically and emotionally fit to carry the load? That's what you and I just talked about. I talked about the mental side. You talked about the physical side. They're both freaking grueling. Does he have the courage to make and stand by tough decisions? Are he and his family willing to live in a goldfish bowl where their actions are closely observed by both subordinate and superior? Is he still enthusiastic and cheerful when confronted with seemingly impossible tasks to perform with inadequate means? Is he willing to leave a warm office to check and supervise training, maintenance, and many other activities of his unit? Is he willing to take responsibility himself and correct the situation rather than blame it on the staff of a higher headquarters or on a subordinate when things go wrong in his unit? Man, we owe this guy some money.
That's pretty phenomenal. You know what? It's so humbling to hear that too. And it also doesn't. He's capturing the burden of leadership so well, by obviously someone who's been and lived it, at a multitude of levels. And I think so often we talk to like frontline troopers or frontline, leaders are like, if I was in the senior ranks, man, everything would be great. And they don't fully understand the burden of leadership. And that's a tough thing. Not everybody can do that. And there are a lot of people that don't want that. And I think once they get there, they realize like, maybe that ain't for me.
Next, is he willing to do the best with what he has, even though what he has seems inadequate? Is he confident he can produce a superior unit with the usual run of manpower? Can he inspire personnel to produce outstanding accomplishments? Is he willing to take a chance on being relieved for attaining only mediocre results? does he really want command rather than just to get command on his record? And I just realized he's got like a lot of these 20 questions. There's like 3 or 4 questions in each one. He snuck some in on us. But what a great outline just to check yourself and see where you're at. See how in the game you are. Next, what does the soldier expect from his commander? Having dealt with the prerequisites of command, so that's what we just did, I offer these thoughts on what soldiers look for in their commanders regardless of branch of service. Honest, just, and fair treatment. Men admire a strict officer if he is also just. An officer who tries to be a good fellow loses his grip early. An officer cannot be expected to know everything. He cannot bluff his men and retain their respect. When he does not know, he should say and then find and announce the answer. Like, I'm laughing as I'm reading this. You're laughing as I'm reading this. This is like straight out of Leadership Strategy and Tactics. Just it's crazy to sit here and read this.
You ask that question all the time. Like, who's got it all figured out? Who has all the answers? Nobody. So why would you even try to pretend like you do? People are, and then we get that question from leaders. They're like, well, they'll lose respect for me. If I act like I've got to pretend like I know it all. And like, no, everyone knows you don't know it all. So they know you don't know, and if you're pretending, they're losing respect for you. If you can actually admit you don't know and take ownership, then of a mistake or whatever had happened, then obviously the respect is going up.
I'll tell you another tricky situation that this offers some insight into, and it doesn't offer a definite answer, but I've seen leaders backed into a corner where Leif screws something up. And whatever the mitigating circumstances were, I say, you know what though, Leif, I got to punish him. Leif didn't finish the project on time. I'm writing him up. I told him I was going to write him up. I'm going to write him up and you come to me and say, hey boss, I get it. It's my fault. Here's some mistakes that I made. And I go, yep, doesn't matter. I'm writing you up. And I feel like I'm going to lose respect of people if I don't drop the hammer on you. And the fact of the matter is, if you're a reasonable human being and you listen to the mitigating circumstance of a situation and say, you know what, I really hope that this doesn't happen again, Leif. There's no possible way if this happens again, I'm going to let you off the hook. But you came to me with a plan on how you're going to fix these things. Don't ever allow it to happen again. Your respect for me doesn't go down. People don't think, oh, Jocko's weak. They think, we got a boss that's going to take care of our people. Now, look, if you have somebody that's just out of, does something totally off the wall, of course, punishment must be dealt out. But it's not weak to be reasonable. I guess that sums it up. Speaking of punishment, a commander should administer punishment in an impersonal way and to a degree that fits the circumstances and the offense. When a man pays his debt, the commander should forget the incident. Got to keep that thing in mind, though. Like, you might have a repeat offender. I get it, bro. I get you, General Clark, but that one,
Nah, you know what? I think what he's saying there, what I interpret that as is what you talk about in the first chapter of Extreme Ownership. This horrible blue-on-blue situation that was tragic, that was terrible, and our commanding officers coming to find out what happened, and we think, okay, man, they're probably going to fire someone for this. And there's a lot at stake. And then you talk about by taking ownership, by implementing a plan to make sure that never happened again, the boss actually, his trust increased in you rather than decreased. So, I think when people take ownership and they implement a solution to make sure that you see, hey, they're fixing that problem, you are gaining trust in them, even if something bad happens. So it's not that you're forgetting about it, but you're certainly you're not holding it against someone.
Yeah, and I think that's the key thing. It's not the literal term forget, but I'm not going to look at you and go, well, I don't know, Leif, last time you didn't quite do what I needed you to do. No, it's like, hey, you made your mistake. We figured out what the punishment was going to be. You did your time for your crime. We're going to move on, and I'm not going to hold it over your head. That being said, I'm paying attention. Making sure you're not a repeat offender. Courage. Every man experiences fear in a crisis. The commander cannot show it. He must fortify himself by learning to control his emotions. This is crazy to read. Consideration due them. So this is all under the topic. What does the soldier expect from his commander? Consideration due them as mature professional soldiers. Regardless of age or grade, soldiers should be treated as mature individuals. They are men engaged in an honorable profession and deserve to be treated as such. Military courtesies start between officers. Observation of these courtesies between seniors and subordinates is not belittling to either. They are evidences of the alertness, pride, and good manners of your men. The commander's rank should be used to serve his subordinates. It is not a reward and is not a license to exercise idiosyncrasies. Rank has one object: to enable the officer to fulfill his responsibilities. Subordinates expect the commander to play his part according to his position. They do not begrudge him his rank if he uses it in the interest of his subordinates and superiors. So if you're using your rank in the interest of your troops, we're good. If you're using it for yourself, we got an issue. We got a problem.
You know, that part about the professional, these are professionals, treat them like professionals. It reminds me of our experience in Ramadi, working alongside U.S. soldiers and Marines. And something you always said about, like, these guys are true professionals. They are awesome professional warriors that we were privileged and honored to work alongside. And it was interesting how there are some special operators that did not treat them that way because they felt like, oh, they were special and they went through some, specialized training and they were part of a specialized unit and they had better gear, whatever. And how, like, they created all this bad blood just by not treating people professionally. And it was, I just remember, meeting some of those young Marines and soldiers when we first arrived there, and they just, they were looking at us like, oh man, the SEALs are here. And they'd look at our short barreled little rifles and our cool gear. And we had better night vision, all this stuff. And I'm looking back at these young privates thinking, man, these guys have fired more rounds to their weapons than all of us put together in the entire task unit are ever going to fire in our entire careers in the SEAL teams. That's how much combat they were seeing. And it was just, what an honor and privilege to be with. They were absolute professionals. And that served us well by treating them accordingly.
Yeah. It's like one of those little golden rules. Why is this so hard? Treat people with respect. Treat people with respect. That's it. Treat people with respect. Personal interest taken in them as individuals. Again, what does a soldier expect from his commander? Personal interest taken in them as individuals. A good officer will know the names, background, and individual characteristics of his men. He must have a genuine personal interest in them, or they will not have it in him. Each individual has problems. There is no easy way of getting a grip on men than by helping them solve their personal problems that give them great concern. An officer should not, however, be too familiar with his men. Good soldiers do not expect it and usually resent it. It is not necessary to call soldiers by their first names, even if the officer sleeps in the same foxhole with them. Close, but not too close, as we like to say. The dichotomy of leadership. Yeah. The expression, and I didn't ever hear anyone say this. And I started saying it a little while ago. I don't know if maybe it's not going to, I don't know. I'm not trying to take credit for something. But you know the term that we'd say in the teams, which was take care of your gear and your gear will take care of you. Which means, hey, when you get done with a dive, you take your dive rig and you do the proper maintenance on it. When you get done with a parachute jump, you take your parachute and you do proper maintenance on it. When you get done with a firefight or an operation, you take your weapon and you do the proper maintenance on it. You take care of your gear and your gear will be there to take care of you. Same thing with people. You take care of your people and your people will take care of you.
That's true. As you're saying that, I'm thinking about some of those text messages that you've sent Echo Charles.
Yes, sir.
Those things are going to become public, I think.
Yeah. Might tell a different story in a little way, but yeah, man.
Why is it so hard for people to respect people?
Just no respect whatsoever. My text messages to Echo Charles, they do have a high level of disrespect. And this also brings to the fact that I believe, I'm not 100% sure. I believe that I have a certain guard passing technique.
Yes.
That is called the disrespect.
Literally, yeah.
That I actually named because of you, because I would use this guard pass and it's so disrespectful that you would you would feel disrespected.
I know.
Did you think of that name?
No, you did. I remember very vividly.
Expand. I like this.
You don't have to. It's just very disrespectful. That's it. Yeah, I think that's a good question. You know, is it that hard to be respectful? And apparently, it is sometimes. So, yeah, man.
There's a fine line between jest and disrespect, and maybe a little more of a gray area.
Yeah, you know, it gets blurry sometimes. Yes, sir.
Find some good screenshots and let's post some Jocko Echo texts.
Mm-hmm.
I think that'll be fun.
Okay.
Back to the book. There is nothing wrong today with the following instructions written by Baron von Steuben at Valley Forge and published by the Continental Congress. Instructions for the captain. A captain cannot be too careful of the company. A captain cannot be too careful of the company the state has committed to his charge. He must pay the greatest attention to the health of his men, their discipline, arms, accoutrements, ammunition, clothes, and necessaries. His first object should be to gain the love of his men by treating them with every possible kindness and humanity, inquiring into their complaints, and, when well-founded, seeing them redressed. He should know every man of his company by name and character. He should often visit those who are sick, speak tenderly to them, see that the public provision, whether of medicine or diet, is duly administered, and procure them besides such comforts and conveniences as are in his power. The attachment that arises from this kind of attention to the sick and wounded is almost inconceivable. It will, moreover, by the means of preserving the lives of many valuable men. So there you go. What a incredible thing to be able to read. Instructions for a captain from Valley Forge.
That's powerful, man. It's humbling as well too. I think about all of my shortcomings and how much I could have used that guidance directly, you know, prior to being Charlie Platoon Commander, or, you know, even now, like just reviewing that and thinking about it. And it captures, I think, like I said, the burden of leadership in a massive way, and all that's required of you, which is a lot. Everything, 100%, all the time.
And if you take care of your men are going to take care of you. And if you have this inconceivable attachment, what that does is preserves lives. So when you are a tight unit, you know, I've often said that, you know, the thing that makes a SEAL platoon strong is just the bonds that you have. Like that's the difference. That's gonna make the difference in any military unit, not just the SEAL. I mean, I can talk about the SEAL platoons because I've been in them, but any military unit. What is it that makes a really strong unit? It's how tight they are. And what makes people tight? You take care of them. That's it. It goes on. Instructions for the lieutenant. He should endeavor to gain the love of his men by his attention to everything which may contribute to their health and convenience. He should often visit them at different hours, inspect their manner of living, see that their provisions are good and well cooked, and as far as possible oblige them to take their meals at regulated hours. He should pay attention to their complaints and, when well-founded, endeavor to get them redressed, but discourage them from complaining on every frivolous occasion. So, for the captain and for the lieutenant, what are you trying to do? You're trying to build relationships with your team. You're trying to take care of your people. And by the way, those are the instructions. Not one. That's it. Next, go.
I was just going to say, I think that's the most profound thing to me. You know, as you think, hey, if Hackworth is saying every officer should be required to read this, you would think it's going to be talking about tactics. You would think how to set up, your base of fire and your assault elements, or how to position your troops, and it's not that at all. It's all about building relationships with your team. What's required of you to actually be a leader. It's how you manage and lead, and that's pretty phenomenal. And you say that all the time. Something that we talk about often, which is the hardest part of combat leadership is always the human aspect, not the tactics. That's the easy part.
Yeah, that's when I wrote the foreword for About Face, and he turned against. He said, "Hey, we can't win this war if we keep fighting like this." And they asked him. They asked Howard Tucker in that interview, that famous interview. He gets asked, are you too emotional about the war in Vietnam? And Hackworth says, one couldn't have spent the number of years I spent in Vietnam without becoming emotionally involved. One couldn't see the number of young studs die or terribly wounded without becoming emotionally involved. I have just seen the American nation spend so much of its wonderful, great young men in this country. I have seen our national wealth being drained away. I see the nation being split asunder and almost being split apart and almost being split asunder because of this war, and I'm wondering to what end it will lead to. End quote. That's a guy that loved his troops.
I can only imagine that burden, with 58,000 dead in the Vietnam War, 58,000 U.S. troops killed. And because even at the tiny fraction of that number, that we've experienced in Afghanistan and Iraq, coming back from Iraq, when we came back from Ramadi, I think one of the hardest things for me, just after having lost Mark, with Ryan was blind, Mikey, we lost Mikey in Delta Platoon, and a good friend of mine, who's hopefully going to be on this podcast with you sometime, Elliot, who was severely wounded, and he was in Brooke Army Medical Center in San Antonio, which is the primary burn care facility for all of the U.S. military. And so I went and spent a bunch of time with him there. And from December really through much of 2007, back there regularly and trying to just help him and support him and his family wherever we could. And just witnessing those burn victims in there, when IEDs that were causing, the enemy's most valuable weapon, and you're walking into those ICU rooms, and you're seeing young soldiers and Marines with no lips, no noses, no ears, just faces burned off. It was one of the most horrific things I've ever had to experience. And when I would hear people on the news talking about the war and pontificating about the blood and treasure that we'd spent, and they had no inkling of just how deep and personal that was, and again, that's just a fraction in the Iraq War of what Hackworth experienced in Vietnam. I can only imagine, for him and for every other Vietnam veteran out there, what that was like. But there's no way to not make that personal.
Yeah, and you can see the root of that is, it's the same root. Like you said earlier, these things that you uncover over time, if you take care, if you love your troops, that's going to be, that's what it's about. And Hackworth knew that, that, I know that, General Clark knew that. That's the way it is. Goes on here, loyalty. Loyalty to superiors and subordinates is a basic requirement. Criticism of a commander's superiors in front of subordinates lays him open to the same treatment. He should stand up for his men as he expects them to stand up for him. You can almost see Hackworth's life unfold, right? Like you can see that statement in everything that he did. An officer's presence when the conditions are unpleasant and when the going is tough, sharing the situation of the men means a great deal to them. Pick up the brass. The commander should act as a buffer between superiors and subordinates. He should protect his men from harassment that comes from above, but still get the job done. Yeah, I know sometimes I would pull back the curtain for a few minutes and like show you what was happening above me in the chain of command on all different fronts. And look, everyone up above me in the chain of command doing their job, but it's pressure, and it's kind of maddening. And sometimes I would be asking you for something and you'd get pissed off about it. Well, you know, what the hell you need this for? And I'd say, come here for a minute. Why don't you take a look behind this curtain for 15 seconds? You'd look back there, see that sausage getting made, and say, okay, I'm good. I'll get you what you need. I'm out. Thank you.
You always did a great job of screening us from that. But I think that was very valuable for me because it gave me a new perspective. They're asking us for this. You know, I'm getting mad about it. And then I realized like how much you're actually screening out, you know, of that harassment. Like, hey, I'm keeping these guys off your back so that you guys can go do what you need to do.
Next, that their needs be anticipated and met. A good soldier has needs, both spiritual and physical, and a commander should do everything possible to anticipate and meet those needs. At the same time, he should provide all the comforts and privileges practicable. This is not meant to imply that he should coddle his men or treat them as babies. Like, how beautiful is this dichotomy? Just when you think, oh, maybe he's a little off track here, maybe I'm a little bit, no. This does not mean to imply that he should coddle his men or treat them like babies. Such things as a hot meal when it is not expected. Unit parties, liberal pass privileges, and good recreational facilities are more to the point. Next thing that the soldier expects from his commander: to be kept informed and told the reason why. The commander should keep his men informed at all times, tell them the reasons behind decisions affecting them. Many jobs seem purposeless unless the facts behind them are known. He should continually take action to offset rumors and speculation by giving his men all the information he can. Yeah, we owe this guy money, dude. We owe this guy money.
You know what, though? You're probably... obviously there's a direct influence, right, through David Hackworth, you know, and About Face from General Clark. I think you could go back to the Greek hoplites or the Roman legions and probably find some centurion who's writing the same stuff. I mean, they're learning the same stuff. Yeah. It's some different aspect, a different terminology, a little bit different, you know, a vastly different era, millennia apart. But it's human nature, as we just said, hasn't changed, and I bet there would be something very similar.
And just to make sure everyone realizes, we're not just talking about war. We are talking about leadership. We're talking about leadership in business. You need to tell your people what's going on, and they need to understand why they're doing what they're doing. I'm talking about your family. They need to understand what's going on, and they need to understand why they're doing what they're doing. Any situation where you're interacting with other human beings, these rules apply. And they apply to the point, why do we know that they work? Because they've been tested. We tested them, but these guys tested them in even crazier conditions, harder conditions, in 3 freaking wars.
And that's one of the most common things we're getting at Echelon Front these days is questions about managing the family schedule and how do I work from home with so many people still working from home. You know, it's those are like a good bulk of the questions are about that, and that's directly applicable.
Well, the other thing that's been interesting is when COVID hit, you know, most of the companies that we work with are good companies that want to be awesome. We do get some companies that come to us sometimes against their will, brought to us by the board or whatever, that we are going to fix them, help fix them. Most of the companies we work with are good companies that want to do better. When COVID hit, so these companies aren't companies that are struggling. These are companies that just want to do, better. And so they would implement the principles that we talk about: implement, cover, move, implement simple, prioritize and execute, decentralized command, default aggressive, extreme ownership. So they implement these things, and yes, they're absolutely start doing better. And we watch them and we get feedback from them, and their profits go and they become more efficient and more effective, and they start taking market share. Everything goes awesome. And it's cool. And everyone goes, hey, yeah, that's great. And we're super excited about it. When COVID hit and all of a sudden there was companies that were in dire situations, and we're able to utilize the principles to survive, yes, but also start to actually go on the attack and thrive, that was pretty epic. Because it basically was like, did you ever pull a reserve parachute?
Never have.
Yeah. I only did it one time. And all the other times I'd be like, yeah, cool. I'm glad I got a reserve on. The time that I pulled it, I was like, this thing's freaking awesome, bro. Thank you for packing this thing correctly. Case of beer to the rigger, Because normally it's just like, yeah, it's work. It's on there. It's all good. And that's kind of what companies, hey, we're doing really good. Hey, our profits are up. All these positive things. But all of a sudden when they're faced with real hardships and challenges, they're like, what should we do here? Prioritize and execute. Oh, yeah. Okay.
Or die. Or they no longer exist. Yep.
Exactly. Hey, we've got this going. We got all these people working at home. What should we do? This is decentralized command. Yeah, we've been doing that. Well, yeah, now you need to do it harder. You need to make sure everyone understands what the mission is, what the goal is, what the end state is. You need to communicate with them. They need to understand why they're doing what they're doing. Can you make that happen? Yes, we can. Okay. Execute.
That makes me think there was an educator, remember, on EF Online a few weeks ago as they were about to go back to school, in her state or her district. She was an educator. She was talking about how crazy it was and how much uncertainty it was. And you said, we didn't learn this stuff in a Boy Scout troop. We learned this on the battlefield. Yes. It was crazy. It was chaotic. There was a lot at stake. There was a lot of uncertainty about what was going to happen. Like, what you need to do is prioritize and execute. That's where this came from. And
I know it's getting crazy in that 6th grade classroom, and I'm telling you, this is going to work.
And it did. And she came back and gave us a great sit rep about how it was. She was implementing that and moving forward and doing great.
Legit. Next thing that the soldier requires is a well thought out program of training, work, and recreation. The commander should keep a balance between training and recreation. Too much of either becomes a drag on the men. Logical progression of training helps keep the men from becoming confused. This is exactly what we wrote about in Dichotomy Leadership. Train hard, but train smart. You can smoke people. You can crush them to the point where they're not getting any benefit anymore. Next, demands commensurate with capabilities, neither too great nor too small. A commander should not overload his men with unnecessary work. On the other hand, letting men become bored because they are not working enough is just as bad. Neither men as individuals nor units should be expected to accomplish impossible tasks. What is he saying? You got to balance that dichotomy.
It sounds like General Clark had the same experience with his soldiers that we always said, like, a bored team guy is like the most dangerous thing in the universe because they're going to figure something out to go cause trouble or just create mayhem.
Because rock fights. That was when I was a young team guy. If we weren't being told to do something like sitting around waiting for something, there was a rock fight happening. All of a sudden someone just hits you in the leg with a rock from 20 yards and it's a rock fight. Or actually it wasn't rock fights. There was a couple of those, but mostly
you're not talking about like tossing a pebble.
I'm talking about like hucking. No, what it wasn't rock fights. That's when I was a kid. When I was a kid, there was rock fights. And I don't know what you're even thinking when you're having rock fights. But
we had BB gun wars.
Yeah, we had BB gun wars too.
Shoot your buddy in the leg with your
We had
Daisy.
the BB gun wars. If you got shot,
Red Ryder BB gun.
If you got shot, you had to take off one layer of clothing.
By the way, Zero iPro. It was just the dumbest thing ever.
What's that?
I got hit in the face one time. I came home one time with my eye swollen so shut, and my dad was like, "Son, what happened to you?" I got hit with a spear. We were having spear wars.
There you go.
Sharpened sticks throwing them at each other, and it hit me. It missed my eye by like 3 millimeters. My dad was like, "You're an idiot. Don't ever do that again." Anyway, rock fights.
Oh, yeah, not rock fights. Hucking rocks at objects. It'd be like, hey, who can hit that? So I guess it's similar to the pebble, but it'd be like, hey, who can hit that lamp over there? That street light or something. Well, we'll start saying they're hucking rocks at it.
Speaking of board team guys and rock fights, so my first deployment before we worked together in Testing and Bruiser in 2004. So after your first deployment to Iraq, one of our super solid team guys, in our platoon, was throwing rocks through the window of and got in all kinds of trouble because he damaged this, smashed and shattered a window of this like former Saddam palace, and they literally like pulled an award for him. I mean, it was crazy. This palace had a JDAM dropped through the middle of it. It was completely like For some reason, they got all upset that he like shattered the windows.
What's a J-Dam?
A giant bomb dropped from the sky. It's a GPS guided bomb.
Gotcha.
Joint something ammunition.
Joint direct attack munition, I believe.
Yeah,
I don't
we'll go with
I don't
it.
know.
We'll go with
I don't
it.
know. Have to ask Good Deal Dave.
Where's Dave when you need him?
We need Good Deal Dave. You know what? There weren't too many times at Tasking and Bruiser where we had board team guys because you always had us busy doing stuff. But the one time that we did let it go, the Andrew Paul got volunteered to demonstrate the new tasers that we got.
Yeah, I remember that.
And Chris Kyle tased him, and everyone sat around filming it, and
laughing.
Andrew said that was the worst experience of his entire life.
The cool thing, there was a safety officer there that someone made, like we put out the jiu-jitsu mats. Because this was, remember we were doing jiu-jitsu in the morning in the high bay there? And I forget, I heard someone came like, hey, Jocko, they're about to tase Andrew Paul. I'm like up doing work. I'm like, all right, I better go check
You were
this
like,
out.
earmuffs? Did you go check it out?
I don't even remember. It might have been one of those things where I was like, all right, let the boys do what the boys are going to do. Maybe I just saw the video.
Yeah, I think you probably saw I saw the video
but I saw that there was a mat. They took our green, they were actually my mats. They took them, put him down underneath. So he fell face down on the freaking mat, thankfully.
Yeah, that board team guy's bad.
Didn't he say he was going to fight through it?
I think so.
He did not fight through it. Andrew Tall's a tough dude, but that taser took him down. All right, back to the book. Guidelines to orders. Give orders, this is ridiculous. Give orders in a manner which indicates you expect compliance. Do not issue orders you cannot enforce. Give clear, complete, correct orders and follow them up. I mean, the reason I said this is ridiculous is because it's just crazy that what the actual verbiage that we use when we brief is, give simple, clear, concise guidance. And here they're saying clear, complete, correct. Only by long and careful training can the commander achieve perfection in giving orders. Ambiguity, vagueness, and incompleteness of orders are to blame for most disobedience and failure to comply. Which is when I say, if your team isn't doing what you want them to do, the very first person you should check is yourself. And here it is.
And yet that's so hard for any of us to do, right? You get frustrated with the person for not doing what you wanted them to do, and instead of actually looking at yourself and saying, hey, okay, obviously I wasn't clear. I could have done a better job.
The words of an order indicate what is to be done. The manner in which it delivers generates the spirit in which it will be carried out. Oral orders should be repeated back. Failure to do so will most assuredly result in a grave misunderstanding. Only by long and careful training can men learn to receive, obey, and pass on orders to others. Lack of orders does not relieve a commander from acting. You must strive to maintain a complete picture of the situation so you can take suitable action in the absence of orders. It is a wise officer who refrains from criticism until he can make logical, constructive suggestions. An officer should be as good as his word. He should not make promises he cannot keep or make decisions he cannot support. Just perfect guidance on how you tell people what it is you want them to do, how you give orders. The combat commander. Positive leadership. Battle appears to add peculiar problems to command, but when further analyzed, the problems are merely magnifications of those present in training. The great difference between combat and training is the presence of danger and confusion in combat. These two obstacles can be overcome only by positive leadership and by developing a positive and automatic reaction in the individual soldier. That's cool. It's cool that it says this, like we absolutely added confusion, massive amounts of confusion into our training to simulate we couldn't, you can't shoot people obviously during training. You can't add that element of danger, but you certainly can add some freaking confusion.
The term I think I always used was chaos and mayhem.
For sure.
Like activate chaos and mayhem, and your trait ed instructors were awesome at doing that.
They were very awesome at doing that. These positive traits of the commander and of the soldier are acquired during training in peace, training in wartime before combat, training during battle, and by mental factors not easily described. Desire to overcome the enemy, devotion to country and to organization, and personal devotion to the commander. When a disciplined unit is spurred by the mental drives mentioned, it fights not only well, but brilliantly. Those are some awesome things to strive for. The willingness to overcome the enemy, devotion to country and organization, and personal devotion to the commander. Battle is fought for real money and for keeps. Battles are won by teamwork, not by individuals acting alone. The only teamwork that can stand up under the confusion and constant danger, feeling of fear and physical exhaustion is the battle of instinctive teamwork. Success in combat is due largely to endurance on the battlefield. The day after day strain of living in the dirt, of going without sleep and food, of the constant threat of death will cause the man who is physically or mentally weak to quit. Fatigue makes cowards. Men in good physical condition are the last to tire.
I would definitely agree with that for sure. You know what though, man? I was just thinking about like going through the strain and stress of like, I just think about the support of the team. You were talking about the bonds between teams and relationships, and just that attitude. You talked about the respect of the commander, and obviously, no one ever wanted to let you down until you Bruiser, clearly. But I think understanding the mission and just like looking at another guy, you could be under fire in a crazy situation, and I look at like Tony be like, yeah, look back at you, or. Even that situation I said earlier where Dave Burke and a couple other, of our guys ran down to grab the pallets of water, like interacting with you, or when you came down, for a delivery, to resupply us, you're just showing up for just a few minutes, checking us out, seeing how things are going. Like, and I think just the look in your eye of like, hey, cool, how things going down here. It's no matter what the physical strain is on you, or what you're going through, or mental strain, it's I think that support of your teammates around you and like the attitude, particularly the kind of attitude of humor in, I think, the midst of some really dire situations, I think was always super helpful for us.
Yeah. The attitude that people have, and I would love to tell you it's leaders, but as you know full well, it's not just leaders. It can be anyone in the platoon, anyone on a team, anyone in the organization. When things are going bad and someone says, dude, we got this, or whatever. Yeah. Someone, instead of saying, oh, hey, we got to roll out again. You got to be kidding me. Someone goes, good, let's bring it. Like that little thing.
The best
freaking
example.
Power, man.
There it is. And the best example I can think of is we wrote about in the planning chapter of Extreme Ownership, which me and everyone else is jocked up. We're about to launch on that hostage rescue operation, and me and you are sitting in there, and Butters, our intel ensign, comes rolling in and goes, they got IDs buried in the yard and bunker machine gun positions in the house. And you just looked at me and with this big smile on your face, like, I guess you guys are gonna get some. And I was like, I guess we are. I mean, that's that attitude, instead of being like, if you'd have looked at me like, oh no, yeah, do you think maybe we shouldn't go on this? It was like, no, you were like smiling and laughing about it. Now, look, obviously we'd planned and put contingencies in place. We weren't being callous about it, but it was, that attitude was contagious for everybody. Or Mark Lee rolling out as the lead turret gunner. Yeah. You're like, Mark, you feeling lucky tonight? Like, everybody's a winner. Yeah.
So pay attention to that, because it's real easy. It's real easy. It's real easy to let that bad attitude come out, and you need to just stifle that thing. You just need to stifle it. And anybody that wants to talk to me about being transparent and showing your feelings, I'll say no. Actually, just be quiet. Just shut up. And what you need to do is you go, oh, this is going to suck. And I'll look at Leif and say, "This, you guys are going to get some. Watch this. Let's go bring it." The importance of endurance on the battlefield is underlined by Grant's philosophy, the idea that in every battle there may come a moment when each side is fought out and ready to quit, and the belief that in such a moment victory will go to the side which is able to make one final effort. In the heat of a firefight, the poor commander will not be able to lead men into danger, to make them attack or keep order when he and his men are under hostile artillery fire. He won't be able to execute his plans. Instead, his men will forget teamwork and follow their own plans in fighting for survival. Therefore, you must take every opportunity to make your men confident in your ability to command and of the skill and toughness of your unit. Unit morale, the prospect of entering battle, puts every soldier under severe nervous strain. Dangers, real and imaginary, are thick around them. The commander can overcome much of this strain and strengthen the mental endurance of his men by teaching them in advance what to expect. An event foreseen and prepared for will have little harmful effect.
You were talking about Grant's philosophy there, and I was thinking about Chamberlain at Gettysburg. We were just at Gettysburg for EF Battlefield, and I mean, he and the 20th Maine charged, fixed bayonets and charged down the hill in Little Round Top. That was the absolute last ditch effort. They didn't have any ammo. I mean, it was millimeters close to losing that battle, and that would have changed the entire tide of the battle. If Little Round Top had been taken. So I think that's such a phenomenal example of, to me, that's that default aggressive mindset of like, hey, okay, we're going to be default aggressive to continue this, and that one last push is going to change the entire outcome.
There's a famous boxing match with Muhammad Ali, and I want to say I can't remember which match it was, but it is a brutal boxing match, and at one point Muhammad Ali's all beat up, and whoever he was fighting, I forget, it was an incredible fight, but he gets back to his corner and he's telling his corner, cut him off, he's done, cut my gloves off, I'm done. And basically his corner's like, you got to keep going, and they look over and the other guy didn't answer the bell. So like that's where it's at. Like if you can give up right there, that's something to think about. Like, can you just go a little bit more? Can you just go a little bit more? Back to the book. In combat, you really see the critical importance of high morale and esprit de corps. Morale must be high enough to stand the shock and boredom of combat. Actually, before I continue here, I want to say this. That thing about giving people a heads up about what they're going to face, like that, you're going to, like I've had fighters where they got their first they're on the big stage. Maybe they're in the UFC for the first time or whatever. They get nervous and they don't know what that is. No one ever told them, hey man, you're going to feel sick. You're going to feel butterflies. Tito Ortiz, Dean used to corner Tito a lot, and they just had a show about Tito versus Chuck. And one of the scenes you can see, it's Tito. He's right about to walk out and he's throwing up, just viciously throwing up. But I remember Dean telling me Tito would get so nervous before fights that he would just start throwing up. But he understood what it was. Now imagine you're just going in your first fight and all of a sudden you want to throw up, and someone just be like, hey, just go ahead and throw up. Just get it out. Just get it out of your system. It's the same thing in combat. You got to say, hey, listen, you're nervous. It's okay. If you're jittery, if you feel sick, whatever, it's okay. That's just your body, focusing its energy towards where it needs to be focused to. It's perfectly fine. But if you don't know that, it can be a problem. Back to the book. So morale must be high enough to stand the shock and the boredom of combat. Every man must strongly believe that what he is doing is right. He must have supreme confidence that he can deal with any situation, that he is a better fighter than the enemy. Esprit de corps is unit morale. Every man must feel that his unit is a superb fighting unit and that he, like the rest, will sacrifice even life itself for the unit. The spirit is often the difference between mediocre and superior armies. It was strong in the Roman legions and in the French troops under Napoleon. Recognize, though, that the commander must inspire beyond group esprit. Only deep personal conviction springing from the identification with a cause will drive a man forward when his unit is destroyed or scattered. Personal example. The commander should be a model soldier. He must master the technique of war as it fits his assignment. He must improve and expand his technical knowledge. The commander must strive to make it possible for every soldier to say truthfully, the old man always knows the right thing to do. In addition, he must exhibit daily a fine example of stamina and courage. Besides his own example, the higher commander is also represented by his staff officers. They too must reflect the superior qualities of their commander. Above all, set the proper example. Leading by example, there you go. The model soldier. Soldiers' morale. Show me a unit that is well run, properly trained, and ready for combat, and I'll show you a unit with high morale. No commander will readily admit that his unit's morale is anything other than excellent. I wrote leadership strategy and tactics. People always ask, how do I improve? Do hard things. You want to improve morale? Do hard things. As we compare units, however, it is often obvious that morale in some units is more excellent than in others. What is morale? Our manual on leadership defines morale as the mental and emotional state of the individual. Although it is a complex and intangible quality, the manifestations of its absence in a unit can be detected readily in the form of poor appearance of the individuals and unit area, poor discipline, and a low state of training.
That's something that, obviously Hackworth immediately applied that, to the hard, from the hard luck to the hardcore battalion. Sure. And I was thinking about that with Tasking a Bruiser. It's something that we talk about often, which is, initially we were working harder than everybody. The people were working harder than we were preparing for scenarios that the guys that had been to Iraq previously, like, what, man, why are we training for this crazy multi-casual scenario? That we didn't experience anything like that on the battlefield, or when the instructors would say, hey, you guys are good to go, and we'd say, you know what, we need to do a few more runs. And there was grumbling around that. People were saying, hey, we're working harder than we're coming in early, we're staying late, we're not taking the night off and going out and drinking beers in town. We're actually planning and training and preparing, and it's interesting to think about how those complaints just faded away as our performance increased. And that was morale. That's morale increasing 100%. To say, hey, we're Tasking a Bruiser. Hey, why are we working harder than these other taskings? Because we're Tasking a Bruiser. That's why. Because we strive to be better than everybody, and that's what we're gonna do. And that's awesome.
101. More stuff I stole from Hackworth 101. Several adjuncts to morale. Chart 3, good management. We all like to be in a unit where things run smoothly, where things are planned, where men do not have to hurry up and wait. Adequate information. Men like to be kept informed ahead of time of things that affect them or are apt to affect them. It is far better for the commander to keep his men informed than have the men seek to get such information from rumors. High state of training. If a unit is not well trained, its men know it. This fact shakes their confidence, especially if they anticipate the possibility of using that training in a critical situation. Chances for advancement. Progress is morale raising to all men. Knowing that advancement is possible and that excellent performance and preparation lead to promotion helps morale. Good physical and mental condition. Good physical condition goes hand in hand with good mental condition. These two elements are basic to achieving good morale. Good administration. Men like to know that their pay and accounts and individual records are correct. Confidence in equipment. Ours is the best equipped army in the world. confidence in commanders. Men expect their commanders to know their jobs, to share the hardships with them, and to take a personal interest in their problems. You will not know whether a particular officer or soldier has a problem until someone has heard his case. A willing ear will gain much confidence. Comfortable quarters. I'm paraphrasing some of these. Mess. Good food, mail service, medical attention, post-exchange facilities, leaves and passes, religious services, and character guidance. It is especially important that an army be made up of mostly young soldiers be provided with facilities for religious services in accordance with their preferences. A program of character guidance will help to continue in the service the wholesome influence of home and community life. Awards and letters of commendation. Standards. Soldiers like to be in a sharp unit. They appreciate achievement of high standards in discipline, dress, housekeeping, police, maintenance, training, and athletics. The lift in morale that comes from impressive and well-executed military ceremonies is an important factor.
That kind of reminds me of like group PTs, at the team. And everyone like hates group PTs, like grumbles at group PTs. And then you get together and you do some awesome workout together. And after you're like, that's awesome. That was great.
We just got some little help from external sources that it was, we'll move on to this in a second, but we just got some little help from external sources that it was Ali Frazier when that fight happened. When that fight I was talking about earlier happened. And it was Frazier's corner was basically saying, you're done. And Ali's was over telling his corner, cut him off, I'm done. And Frazier's corner said, you're done. And that was it. Ali's corner, was, no, you can't cut off. You're fighting again. You're fighting more. And he decided to stick, that was it. He won. He held on for an extra 3 seconds and got the victory after a 15-round war. It was a 14-round war going into the 15th round. But I like that. Like when I know I'm not the most talented and gifted person in any way, shape, or form. But I know that if I'm having a hard time, I know someone else is too. And I know that I will answer the bell. And I know that's gonna be a problem. It's gonna be a problem for somebody.
That's I think for a lot of us, it's kind of human nature to focus on yourself, and think, oh, if you're having a struggle and it's something you talk about, whether it's discipline equals freedom, waking up, at the alarm early in the morning. And how it's like you're a human being. It's hard for you. It's hard for anyone to do that. But we kind of like to think, oh, it's harder for me, and without the recognition of like, man, it's hard for everybody. And if I can push a little bit harder, it's going to give me the advantage. I figured that out in Hell Week for me. I wasn't the fastest runner. I wasn't the fastest swimmer. But like by day 2 of Hell Week, everyone is crushed. I was like, dude, I'm good to go. Like all of a sudden I can hang with guys that were way faster runners than me. They were hurting more and it's like even the score. Yeah. So I think that gives you a pretty huge advantage if you can keep grinding in the tough times.
Yeah, the normal face philosophy helps so much because and I'm obviously thinking about like a jiu-jitsu situation or whatever where you're competing against someone directly, where if they're gassing or whatever, they're in a state of extreme adversity, we'll say, and they interpret, because just like how you're saying, Leif, how you're like, hey, we're so focused on ourselves. I'm focused on how tired I am. I don't know how tired this guy is. All I have really is his external, what he's doing or looking like. But if the other guy's just like cruising in his face, like he's really comfortable, you're like, man, I can't compete with this at all. So now you want to give up even more. You know what I'm saying?
You can never, like the joke about normal face is no joke, man. It really isn't. It really, truly isn't. And you talk about, like how many times have you seen me, like we're doing jiu-jitsu, or even not you training with me, but me training with anybody, me training with Dean Lisch, training with somebody that's better than me, that's giving me a run. Have you ever seen like a look on my face of just like despair?
No. So, I told this story probably more than once before already on here, but there was a time where you were rolling with Dean and, hey, with all due respect, he was kicking your ass pretty bad too. And I was like, dang,
absolutely.
Seeing Jocko over here, and you guys were going hard. That's the thing, and that's the part that really like stuck with me. I'm like, man, I would be gassing right now, like hardcore. You know how you scramble, then you scramble again, you scramble again, you scramble again, and then you kind of rest or it. But you guys weren't even doing that. I was like, man, and you were getting your ass kicked. So I'm like, Jocko's in a world of hurt right now. Then he had you in Mount double Snow Angel.
Ugh.
And I'm like, I was feeling literally like physically claustrophobic because of how tired I was like empathetically getting from watching you guys and like how your arms were or whatever. I was like, man, I don't know how he can even take that or whatever. And then you ended up sort of getting out and the round ended. And I was looking at your face and you're just like, kind of like, that's what you do every day kind of thing. I was like, I don't know. That's what I knew is like, okay, this kid's a little bit different than the normal person, you know?
You do that even when probably the lowest point that I've seen you when Seth Stone and I came to visit you in the hospital after your neck surgery. And we went and bought you a big like Danny's Slam burger, you know, like double cheeseburger. Like, we're going to go, let's go see Jocko. He just had his surgery. And we roll up there and you were just in, and you were like normal. I knew you were hurting back because you did like just set it down over there. Like you did, but you were still like normal face. And I don't know what you looked like before we walked in there, but you definitely turned on the normal face.
Yeah.
When, you know, and I knew you had to be in massive pain. You just coming out of neck surgery. You know, had all these nerve issues, and they had you on a bunch of, you know, drugs and stuff. But you were even still were normal face.
Well, I was freaking getting neck surgery because of Dean Lister. That's what the deal is. But it's a real thing. And also, I mean, look, Leif, you've come to me with many times with all kinds of, you know, bad news. You know, whether it's just, hey, you know, whether even it's just something stupid, like I'm thinking of some dumb stuff like, you lost some gear, right? Let's say some critical gear, which you did, or your platoon did, which means you did.
I did.
Like, you know, you come to me and you go, hey, boss, we lost this, that, and the other thing. And I go, okay, well, looks like we're gonna have to fill out some paperwork, right? Like, it's a real thing. And if I can't control my emotions because you lost a piece of gear, your platoon lost a piece of gear, like, how am I going to react in the future?
And by the way, when you're saying I lost a piece of gear, like we're talking about like I'm coming in and telling you I lost a $15,000 pair of like PVS 15 like night vision goggles,
which can be used by the enemy.
Yeah, which is a big deal. Or we lost a Kick 13, which is, you know, a cryptologic device that you know, that we use for radios. It's
a cryptological device that when you lose means the entire country of America has to update their cryptological loads.
Which is a giant deal. And so for Jocko to just give you the normal face on that, it's actually the worst. It's like your dad telling you he's not angry, he's just disappointed. I mean, it's actually the worst. Because if you were like, dude, are you kidding me? You know, like I would be, look, it would be deserved. But when Jocko's like, Roger, and just looks back at you like, oh.
Doesn't it give
can't
you
he
like
just be angry?
Doesn't it give you like maybe it's on the other side of like your brain or something, but doesn't it give you like a big sense of comfort? Like, okay, at least this is manageable. Like, it's a big deal, but at least it's manageable, because like if you're already kind of freaking out for whatever reason and you bring it to him, who's like part of the reason you're kind of apprehensive about the whole thing, to say the least, and he doesn't freak out. So it's like, it feels like in your mind, you're like, okay, maybe this whole chaotic situation that just emerged is kind of manageable more.
Well, I mean, look, to me, there's definitely like, it's more difficult to handle a boss who's like, doesn't freak out about it, right? When you're like, because you don't want to let that boss down. You want to let that boss down. You're like, hey man, it's like, Roger, you know, and it's harder. It's more, but I guess to your point, Echo, I'm gonna actually fix that problem. I'm gonna make sure it doesn't happen again. Whether if you flipped out about it and, you know, yelled and screamed at me, then that's my punishment. Whereas the punishment for me is knowing like it's constructive, because I know like I gotta get this fixed. We can't let this happen again. This is a massive issue. Yeah. Hey, okay, I know we got to send out a message and tell the entire U.S. military and, you know, Department of Defense.
Send out a jackass message.
Yeah, and so, you know what? I'm going to start writing the message right now. Let me do it. Let's get some.
Yeah, you know, that's probably not the best example I could have picked, because as I'm thinking about it, what you're saying is accurate. Like, it's more tormenting for me just to be like, all right, cool, Roger. You know, as opposed to being like, I can't believe you did that. Because now you can be like, God, Jocko's such a jerk. And it's almost like, you know, we can have a little spat over it. Yeah. As opposed to me just saddling you with unbearable guilt for letting me down.
But it's that, look, the reality is it gets the problem fixed.
Yeah.
It gets the problem fixed.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not unbearable guilt. It's like, okay, we can't let that happen again. This is a huge deal, and I'm going to make sure this doesn't happen again, which is going to be better for me, going to be better for you, going to be better for our team, going to be better for everybody, rather than like, I got yelled at, you know, and that's the end of it, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and even like when they flip out on you or something, you're like, yeah, I messed up, but like he didn't have to flip out on me like that, you know? So it kind of like not justifies, but it kind of lessens.
It gives you a cause, right?
Yeah,
Dude, Leif freaking just lost his mind with me on that. You know what I mean? And you go back to the platoon, you go, dude, Jocko just totally freaked out. He's freaking out about this. That guy turns a mountain into a molehill every time, right? All of a sudden, it's me against you. And then it turns into me against your platoon. So it's just all bad.
One thing I will say about Normal Face, and I could say this because anybody that knows me knows that I'm probably the worst.
One of them, yeah.
The worst Normal Face guy ever. Like, it is a real struggle for me to like maintain Normal Face.
It's funny because I mean, yes, it is not a strength of yours, but you are better now because, man, back in the day, it was just like, I would be looking at you going, oh, this is
my
gonna be
face
fun.
is getting red.
Just turning red, just clenching your teeth. I'd be like, oh, Jack, Leif's getting spun up. This ought to be good. I'd be thinking like, please don't say anything until the boss leaves or whatever. I'll handle it, dude. You don't have to say anything. And yeah, that would be good.
But what I was going to say is this is a great example of discipline equals freedom, right? And your kids, well, I've known them since they all were super little and watched them growing up, and you have helped them, you know, train them in that, like help. You're practicing that, and it's something that you got to practice. It's something you can get better with reps. Even if you're not naturally good at it, like me, you can definitely get better with reps. And so I've improved. I got a long way to go still. But I think you got to be thinking about it all the time. And that's, you know, we've talked about it on the podcast years ago when I was here, like the chaos at home. I got young kids at home. That's a great example to like accept that as like okay, I'm not going to spin up. This is a good chance to practice Normal Face right now. When I'm upset or I'm frustrated, we're not getting out the door for the road trip or whatever it is that I get spun up about all the time. And if you accept that as like a training opportunity, then when you actually need to use Normal Face, you will actually be much better at doing it.
Bro, you mentioned like training and the kids and stuff. The whole reason it's called Normal Face is because it's an actual game that this
kids,
guy played whatever with the kids. It's like the wrapping paper, the cardboard left over from the wrapping paper, the tube.
I've witnessed the Normal Face.
You don't have to explain.
Oh, damn, okay.
But you know,
all right.
I did it to one. We had a guy that showed up in Ramadi, a new guy, who's a great dude, but he showed up and he's a happy guy.
Yeah.
And he would smile all the time, right? We're talking private pile, you know? And so I'd look at him and go, hey, you can't be walking around like smiling like that. You're a freaking team guy. You need to represent. We are task unit bruiser, not task unit freaking smiley. So I played Normal Face with that guy. You know who I'm talking about?
I do.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So.
And it was so funny because, I mean, I was laughing so hard because he could not even come close to not smiling. And the more I did it and the harder I hit him, the harder I was laughing, he was laughing. It was pretty funny.
One Normal Face game I'm thinking about was your oldest daughter when she was probably 7 maybe, and we were at your house and on the pull-up bar in the garage. Do you remember that?
No.
And you're like, get up there and show Leif how many pull-ups you can do. So she gets up, she cranks out some pull-ups, like awesome. And then, you know, maybe she wasn't even 7 because she was way off the ground. You know, you like lifted her up there to get there on the full-size pull-up bar.
Freaking
so she's like 4 feet off the ground, and you're like, I will not catch you. As she's hanging on the bar, like, I will not catch you. She's like, Dad. You're like, meanwhile, your hands are like right there ready to catch her. Yeah, but she can't see him. And I was just like, but you know what? She actually was like, you could see initially she was like, Dad. And then she was like, she just went like Normal Face. And I was like, and then she dropped off. You caught her. It was like,
yeah. Well, you also have to train your kids to deal with just unknown terror. Falling, breaking broken bones. Oh, sorry, kids. That's the way it goes.
She turned out all right. So good.
She's great. She's outstanding. Yeah, it's a learning process. You learn about controlling your emotions. Life. I've learned a lot about parenting.
I feel like with the kids practicing or taking opportunities to practice normal face 100% of the time is a good method.
It's a good method, and it is a great thing. Like, no joke, it is a great thing for a leader to be able to control your emotions, because your emotions, we already talked about this. If I'm panicking, if Leif reports to me some news and I panic, he's going to panic. Everyone's going to panic. It's going to be mayhem. Yeah. If he sees me go, all right, got it. It's like, okay. I've had, like, at the muster, the musters, there's timelines, and you got to be at a certain place at a certain time, and I've had Jamie come up to me, the so-and-so, we don't have any of that stuff yet. It's like, okay. And you can see that she's kind of panicked about it. We don't have the labels for the whatever to pass out stuff. And I go, okay, well, we'll pass them out tomorrow. And she's like, okay, just like, it's all good.
But that's an awesome thing, man, and that's powerful. I mean, you and I were just talking about this today, right? With some with Echelon Front stuff and our strategic growth and things that I was really spinning up about and really stressing on. You're like, it's not that big of a deal, and that's something that is that perspective. When someone's immersed, when someone is immersed in the details of things, and they're like, it's the weight's bearing down on them. We're like, man, this isn't going to happen. It's really easy to get stressed out about that. So it's a powerful thing, man.
Yeah, that also falls into some implied intent, right, of me, and leaving you with the impression that something needs to be perfect because, well, me, like, hey, I like things to be squared away. And then all of a sudden you got something that's not squared away, and you start trying to fix this problem, and you're investing more than it's worth into the problem. And it's because I am giving you the wrong implied intent that, hey, you know what? If it's that much investment, I don't want you to make that much investment of time into something that's really not going to have a massive impact strategically. So, like, I got to do a better job of going, let me know if something's a struggle. Where have I done this before? Like, hey, if it's going to cost, this would be really cool to have. It'd be really cool if we executed this. But if we can't, don't worry about it. Don't invest more than X amount of hours. Hey, go look at it for 2 hours. If we can't do it, we won't do it. No factor. It'd be cool if we can, but let's not lose sleep over it. Whereas, it's like, once again, going back to Gettysburg, what I need to remember is if General Lee tells Stonewall Jackson to do something, he's going to freaking do it. And he doesn't care what price he has to pay to accomplish that mission. Well, if I mention to you, like, hey, this would be cool to have, and you're like, cool. And now all of a sudden you're paying the ultimate price to make something happen. And you look up, 3 weeks later, and you've spent money and time, and it's like, you're like, I got it done, or maybe we can't execute what your vision was. It's like, oh, okay, cool, don't worry about it. It's like, that's not a good normal face, It's a little bit too much. So, yeah, it happens.
The final thing I'll say about normal face is I love that my kids now have been influenced. I'll be like, we call it Jocko normal face. So when you say,
we pretty much brand everything as Jocko around here, so we're good with that.
I say execute Jocko normal face, and they're like be smiling for a picture, and they're like, boom. It's on cue. It's awesome. My 1-year-old, not so much yet, but my 4-year-old and 6-year-old, they get some.
That's legit. All right. Back to the book. Chart number 4, evidence of morale. So we were on this whole thing talking about morale, and this is evidence of morale. In discussing the subject of morale with visitors, I often ask and am asked, what do you look for in a unit or in order to gauge the morale? Since morale is influenced by so many factors, there are naturally many indications of the state of morale. The things I note quickly in sizing up a unit include, I'm going to burn through some of these, saluting, dress, good housekeeping, pride, I'll go into that one a little bit. Are the men eager to show their accomplishments? Do they point to their unit's history with pride? Do they have something good to sell and try and sell it? Participating in charities, athletic program and supported teams. An athletic program enthusiastically supported is always a favorable indication of morale. Church attendance, soldiers' deposits and other savings. A man who saves his money each month is banking on his future and is usually a well-adjusted and confident soldier. When there are many such soldiers in a unit, there is a depth of stability in the organization, but commanders should not attempt to coerce the men to participate in this program. Just for all leaders, really, this is probably one of the things when I look back at my military career that I did a pretty horrible job of, and that was that I never said, all right, guys, here's what you should do with your money. Here's some moves to make. Here's some things that you should do. Here's some things that you shouldn't do. So just if you're a leader, especially if you're a military leader, look, when you're a lot of kids that join the military, myself included, hey, when I got to the teams and I was an E4 in the teams, I was the richest person in the world. And, I got that paycheck every 2 weeks and I was ready to rock and roll.
Making it rain.
Oh, it was great. And, I really wish somebody along the way would have said, hey, man, that's cool. You're going to make whatever, $5,000 this month. You know what? I know you like to get after it and go have a good time, and you should. And you should do that with $4,000, not with $4,999. So if you're in a position where you can help people plan their economic future, please do that.
You know what? It's funny that you're actually saying that, because you of all the people I worked with in 13 years in the Navy, like, you're the only one that did that. And maybe not on you didn't like have a presentation to the entire task unit. Maybe you could have done something like that. I
absolutely should have.
But you had a lot of direct interaction with a whole lot of people and helped direct them and, or influence or encourage them to do something, go in the right direction.
Yeah, I think to your point, I think guys that were close to me, I would be like, hey, bro, what you need to do is this. And so that's cool. But, I should have been doing it for everybody, and I didn't. And the reason is I didn't really care about that stuff, honestly. I didn't really think about it. I didn't really think about that. I just thought about, hey, we just want to be good frogmen and a good task unit and a good platoon. That's it. That's what we're here for. So I should have been thinking a little bit deeper about that. But if you're in that position, do it. Enlistment and re-enlistment records, AWOL. When such offenses are reasonably easy to commit and the number of offenses is low, it is indicative of high morale. Size of sick call, court-martial rates, incidents and accidents, complaints about the inspector general. This is another classic thing, right? So complaints to the inspector general. This is complaints to the inspector general. Later in the book, Leif, he talks about how you should be open and ready to being inspected. Like everyone hates inspections and doesn't want the commander to come down, and he says you should be waiting for that. And it's very similar to our attitude in Ramadi, which I absolutely stole from the XO of the 1st to the 506th, the XO of the 1st to 5, or the ops officer from the 1st to 506th, who, as soon as we got there was an investigation happening, and I was like, yeah, what do you get investigated for? And he goes, oh, this, that, and the other thing, or this thing. And I said, oh, how's that going to work out? And he goes, I love it when we get inspected. He goes, I want them to come and inspect and see what we're doing and see what it's like down here and see what it's like to live down here and let them understand what's going on in the front lines. And I absolutely adopted that policy. And what's cool is what he says in this book is, why are you afraid of being inspected? You shouldn't have nothing to hide. So if you're afraid of being inspected, that's a problem. And let's fix the thing so that you can be open to being inspected.
We talked about that in Extreme Ownership, right? Leading up the chain of command, and how we invited our commander to come down and see what we're doing, and invite our operations officer and their staff to be there. But it's a complete opposite though of what everybody else.
Oh yeah.
Everybody else's mindset was like, get the boss man away. We don't want him around here. We want to be able to. And what they wanted to be able to get away with was like really minuscule stuff, right? Like uniforms around the camp, like attendance at meetings, little things that don't really matter. And yet what we gained by having them come out and visit us was a deep understanding of our mission, how we were mitigating risk, what resources we needed. I mean, it's a no-brainer, and yet nobody does that because they don't want the scrutiny of the big boss man.
The wrong attitude. Next section, outside influence on morale. The factors and indications of morale covered so far concern things generally within the control of the commander, but there are influences on the morale of the soldiers, especially those on duty in a far-off land, which stem from attitudes of officials, the press, radio commentators, and public at home. The soldier should feel that he is needed and that his sacrifices are of immediate and long-range benefit to his country, his home, his family, and himself. He should feel that his unit is as important to him as his family, that he is just as important to the unit. He will feel that importance as long as the people at home feel it. He is sensitive to public opinion at home, and because of good radio, newspaper, and mail facilities, is constantly aware of attitudes at the home toward the importance of his job.
That's an interesting perspective compared to
Totally.
all, if we were reading newspapers and watching TV, particularly in 2006, the Iraq War, it was just constant negative coverage, quagmire, we can't win, this is terrible. We just had to tune that stuff out.
Yeah, and it's even more pronounced now with social media. Did we have social media? Was there social media for us in Ramadi?
It was like MySpace. And actually, I do remember Mark Lee used to always come back and get on Facebook.
It existed.
Yeah, Facebook existed, but it was not. I think it like MySpace was still like the dominant.
2006 Echo. Where were we at social media wise? 2006.
Yeah, Leif is correct. Yes.
Just kicking it
It's
with
like
MySpace.
between MySpace and
I
Facebook.
thought MySpace was like a music something.
Yeah, you could put music.
So
on your
MySpace was legit social media back then,
deal. Yes, and before that too.
and before that.
Yeah, it's 2007. You said
2006.
Yeah.
What year
Yes,
did
6.
what year did Facebook come to prominence?
Oh, I don't know the exact year, but that's when, when it was rolling.
It was
for
rolling.
sure. But MySpace was still going on as well.
But there was a lot less people on all these things. You know what
Yes.
I mean? I mean now
Oh,
it's
yeah.
now it has replaced
It was
immediately.
pre-iPhone,
Yeah.
so you couldn't access it with your phone. You could
Yeah.
only access it through the your computer.
Yeah, that was like barely right when pictures to the internet started going. Like not all phones had cameras and stuff like that.
So, bottom line, we got to pay attention to the influence on morale from outside our organization. Pay attention to it. This next section is called Junior Officers Conferences. And it says there are always many newly commissioned officers, fine officers in the Army. They have come from many sources. Some of these young officers have demonstrated outstanding ability in combat. Others have not had this experience. Few of them have had the time or opportunity to become fully indoctrinated with the duties and responsibilities required of an officer. The standards and responsibilities of an officer are, in many respects, more exacting and more difficult to discharge in peacetime than in combat. Consequently, officers' conferences should be conducted for all junior officers to review the duties and responsibilities of officers. So what am I saying? What he's saying is that, look, you should meet with your subordinate leadership and educate them and teach them. And I often ask this question to clients. I say, has anyone here had a person that invested in them personally? And, most of the time, especially when I'm talking to leaders, most of the time people will raise their hand and say, oh yeah, I had this person that took me under their wing, then I say, well, how did that make you feel? And obviously everyone says, oh yeah, that makes you feel great. It makes you feel like you can do well, and it's a person that's encouraging you. And then I say, how many people are you doing that for right now? And there's less hands, right? And so we take this investment of the people that raised you, like the people that raised me and the teams, right? What if I take that investment, I just hold on to it and don't give it to anybody else? That's horrible. And it's not continuing to grow the capabilities of the community.
There's something deeper there that I when he said roles and responsibilities. So you're reviewing roles and responsibilities with them. And I think that's something that, the Jocko brief that you would give in like the junior officer training course. When I was running training for 2 years, I ran training for all SEAL officers who are graduating from our basic training pipeline. And you came in, we'd have you come in and give the Jocko brief. And it was the same thing that you briefed to the task units and platoons going through the workup. And I think one of the most important parts of that was the roles and responsibilities. So it's great to mentor. I mean, you're right. People don't invest in their people. I agree with that 100%. But I think a lot of people don't know how to mentor people. And what he's saying there, I think, which is if you've got to make their roles and responsibilities clear. And you broke down. I mean, it was shooter. Your job is to make things happen. Get default aggressive. You have it listed out all the way. Fire team leader. Take your 4 guys, lead your fire team, support your squad leader. You had the squad leader. Then you had the platoon commanders. You had the assault chief. You had the assault force commander, the ground force commander, etc. And that was a really powerful document. So much so that I've had several very successful SEALs, including good friends of yours, who have reached out to me and said, "Hey, can we get a copy of that?"
Yeah.
Because it really, without breaking that down, enables you to execute with confidence. If you know what your roles and responsibilities are, then you can actually step up and execute with confidence. And I think that's a really, people don't define that. You define it in a way where it was easy to understand and enable people to execute. And I think that's a key thing to mentor people on.
One of the key parts of that, when I would get done talking about what the roles and responsibilities of everyone was, I would say, okay, now that you know your roles and responsibility, you also have to understand the person below you and the person above you of the chain of command. You have to understand what their roles and responsibilities are. And if you have to either ascend or descend into the situation where you can solve a problem and do their job. As soon as you get a problem solved, you can't get stuck there. You have to elevate yourself up to the next position. The last thing that I would start saying to guys once they were done with JOTC, now I'm talking to platoons, is I would say, listen. And I would usually say this just to like the head shed. I would say, listen, here's the roles and responsibilities. I don't actually care who does these things, but you better figure it out, because sometimes you might have a platoon chief that hadn't been in the teams for a few years and he had some platoon commander that had just gotten back off deployment, or you'd have whatever the case may be. Maybe the LPO just got done teaching assaults out at Tradet and now he's in the platoon, or just got back from land warfare, so he's going to really know how to do that job. So I'd say, listen, it doesn't really matter which one you have. Now I'll tell you, basically, and this is what I always say, basically, enlisted guys, you're the tactical experts. You handle the problem that you got at hand. Officers, you need to figure out what the next move is going to be. And that was the general thing. But then I'd say, listen, if this officer doesn't have any experience whatsoever, and maybe the LPO is kind of badass and the chief is, I'd say, listen, officer, you need to look to your chief and he needs to elevate a little bit and figure out what's going to do next. So, the reason that happened was because as I put more and more platoons through training, I saw that some platoons, they just didn't, they had a mismatch. They had some prior enlisted officer that was freaking just a badass and knew everything, or they had a chief that was, been out of the loop for a while. And so, okay, but the LP, like I said, so eventually I would say, listen, I don't really care how you guys break these up, but you have to know who's responsible for what. And one man cannot do all these jobs. It's not possible for one man to do all these jobs. I've seen some badass SEALs with tons of experience come through here, and they might be able to pull it off for an op or 2 ops, and then something's going to happen, and all of a sudden it's going to be overwhelmed, and other people have to be able to back them up. Not to mention, if somebody's doing all these jobs, I'm going to kill them, and you better figure it out.
I remember the "don't get stuck there" in all caps.
Don't get stuck there.
The slide.
Okay, so the reason I wanted to cover this section is because it says this. So we're talking about these junior officer conferences. These conferences should be conducted by commanders themselves on an informal basis. Lieutenants in separate companies and detachments may be invited to join groups from units commanded by a field grade officer. Groups should not be too large. Preaching should be avoided. I read this whole section just so I could say that. Preaching should be avoided. These conferences can well be the means of improving the unit team under the coaching of its captain, the unit commander. These conferences may consist of 1-hour meetings. He goes into some detail about how to do it. But the fact that he's saying, look, you're not bringing people in there to preach on how to do things. You're bringing in there to educate, to have discussions. And he's got the whole topic of discussions here: military courtesies, personal standards, military discipline, promotions, unit history, esprit de corps, accomplishments, missions, troop information, morale, self-education of the officers, professional publications, responsibility for he's got everything: security classification, use and misuse of military vehicles. So basically it's like, tell the guys what's going on. That's what he's saying. You have to tell people what's going on. And then he's got this commander's checklist for success. And this, we've already been going for a while, so this will probably be the last thing we cover. Every commander at every echelon should maintain a continuing checklist to be left for or given to his successor to command. This checklist should contain items of value that will assist the new commander in becoming familiar with his command more rapidly than if he had to uncover the same items over a period of time. Such items must consist of: 1, significant strengths and weaknesses of key officers and non-commissioned officers in the command. Boom. Isn't it weird that we might be in charge of people and know that we would have to turn this over and not keep track of like what strength and weaknesses are? Next, important policy matters announced by senior commanders and not contained in SOP or directives. So you're tracking this stuff. A good turnover is such an important thing to do. And what I think is important about a turnover, it's great to have it to turn over to the next unit, but what it does is it forces you to actually think through how you are operating. And when you force yourself to think through how you're operating, you define it, you refine it, you codify it, and now it becomes stronger. Just like when you write down these principles, just like when you formulate a standard operating procedure, and just like when you teach a jiu-jitsu move or you write out how you do, anytime that you study what you're doing, you will get better at it. And that's what this commander's checklist for successors, I said successor, it's for successors. It's for someone that's going to take your place.
That, you know what, part of that too, I think is, that self-analysis you're talking about is like, hey, what did we screw up? What did we learn from it? I remember giving a turnover one time on a follow-on deployment. And when the new unit came in, the new SEAL unit taking over for us, and one of the senior leaders was like, "This is a great turnover. You guys are giving here. This is one of the best turnovers I've ever seen." I'm like, "Why? Like, why did you say that?" It kind of caught me off guard. I was like, well, "Why do you say that?" He's like, "Because you're telling us all the stuff that you screwed up." and it's really, when you have a unit turning over, thinking like, people are coming in like, get these idiots out of here. We're going to take over, even though we've been there for 6 months learning. And I was like, man, how are you going to learn from us to continue the mission and be more effective if we don't tell you what we screwed up? But clearly he wasn't used to that, and most people weren't doing that. And I think that thinking deeply about it, and if you care about the mission, then you want the people to be successful. I mean, we tried to set up the next SEAL team.
For sure.
Steve Ward and his guys, certainly.
Yeah. Speaking of Steve Ward, he's going to be coming on the podcast sometime real soon. Names and personalities of individuals outside the command with whom it is necessary to associate and do business. Areas of training weaknesses within the command. So reporting the weaknesses like you just talked about. Disciplinary matters, security matters, critical equipment shortages. So that's that section. And here's the last thing we'll cover. Vigilance. And by the way, we are on page 13 right now. So, yeah, we are on page 13 of this book. There's 117 pages. We're on page 13. A unit operational readiness status must be ready for immediate employment at all times. Regardless of how well a unit has been trained, the commander cannot allow it to become lax and let down its guard. World War II and the Korean conflict were started by surprise attacks on Sunday mornings. These surprises remind us that we must be ready for anything 7 days a week, 24 hours a day. we cannot relax our vigilance in any way that would contribute to disaster. So, there you go. Like I said, that is the first 13 pages of this document.
I'm only 2/3 of the way through my second
just getting
Sour
warmed up.
Apple Sniper.
Just getting warmed up. Look, I'll get to the rest of this. I'm sure I'll cover this thing. But it's just incredible to see how these principles remain the same over time. And it's so intriguing to uncover the roots of Hackworth and About Face, and thereby the roots of me and of you and of extreme ownership and the dichotomy of leadership and leadership strategy and tactics. There's a thread you can trace through all these books. You got to know your roots. And the better you understand, yes, history, but the better you understand the origin of ideas and principles, then the better you understand those ideas and principles themselves. And the better leader and person you will become. Crazy. What do you think, Leif?
I think that's outstanding. I think that's incredibly eye-opening, and it's because I've read About Face in detail, and you know, I was flipping through my copy this week as I was kind of organizing some stuff in my home office and looking at just the tabbed and underlined pages, and I actually had to put packing tape along the binder because it's been so from overuse. It's just been torn up, and I had to reinforce it. It's awesome to understand where Colonel Hackworth got some of these ideas, and I'm sure. I'm sure also, that these were learned from mentors, and from generations as well. But incredible stuff, definitely.
Making us better.
Yes, sir.
Echo Charles.
Yes.
Speaking of getting better, you have any suggestions on how we can get better?
I have a few now that you mention it. Actually, I think that's interesting. That book. That you finally located. It was like a little treasure hunt. You know, the kind of guys who they look for treasure that might not even exist. You know, that kind of guy. That was you. So you're like, oh, it doesn't exist. See what I'm saying? You only got hints of it through Hackworth.
I have access to all kinds of I pay, these various websites that offer all these ancient PDFs. I mean, I got the dumbest subscriptions, and I've been scouring these things for years.
Yep.
Nothing, nada. And how crazy is it that the month that this version of About Face comes out, I freaking find this thing. There's one copy of it on Amazon, and I have it.
It was meant to be.
I have it. It's legit.
Jocko got his treasure.
I have the ARC.
Yes.
Which is the Advanced Reader's Copy.
Of what, that book?
So an Advanced Reader's Copy, no, I don't have it of that book, but an Advanced Reader's Copy, when a book is going to come out, they'll print how many ARCs do you think they print in current days?
I have no idea.
100.
100,000?
No. Advanced Reader copies. What do they call them? Galleys.
Oh, I got you. I'm sorry. Yeah.
How many do you think they print? For instance,
12,
for Extreme
25.
Ownership, I think I got 6 and you got 6.
Yeah.
Like that. And then they printed some to send to whoever. But we're talking absolutely.
A few dozen.
Yeah,
most,
absolutely less than 50, right? Less than 50. So we were at the muster, and a guy named Tobin came up, and he goes, I have something for you. And he gives me a brown paper bag. And this is just weird because it's hard to even understand this. If you don't understand what an ARC is and understand how rare they are, that, look, you get I love first editions. I love first edition of About Face, but there's got to be 100,000 of those things floating around, right? You might like the first edition of Extreme Ownership. We always joke about it, but there's hundreds of thousands of copies of the first edition of Extreme Ownership. There's only probably less than 50 ARCs of Extreme Ownership. And same with the rest of all of our books. Well, so I'm at the muster, and this guy comes up to me and he goes, "Yeah, I wanted to give you something." And I go, "Oh, awesome, appreciate it." And people give us a lot of cool stuff all the time, you know. And he hands me this paper bag, and I open it up, and there's a book in plastic, just a plastic bag. I pull it out, and I look at it, and it's in a version of About Face that I've never seen before. And it's thinner than normal. And I go, "What is this?" And I pull it out of the plastic, and sure enough, it's an unedited, advanced reader's copy of About Face, signed by David Hackworth. This thing is priceless to me, right?
Yes, yeah.
So he's out there. I actually owe him copies of About Face, of this new version. But guess what else I'm sending him?
Lay it on me.
ARCs of Extreme Ownership.
No.
Because they gave us about 6 each. I have all of mine.
I have mine as well.
You want to know why? Why do you have yours? Why did you keep yours?
I think some of them I intended to send to people and they didn't get sent, and some of them I just thought would be kind of cool to hang on to. You know?
I only kept. First of all, I didn't know that it was a big deal. I didn't know that this whole thing. You know, we didn't know what the hell we were doing when it came to writing, so we didn't know what the hell we were doing. So they send us these things, and I'm like, yeah, whatever. Well, I didn't. They're like, you could send them to the influencers that you know. Yeah. Well, I'm like, and so what I'm thinking is, there's misspellings in this. There's some things that we edited out. I said, I don't want anyone to see this. And I just put them right in I put them in, in like a drawer somewhere. And then, I don't know, a few years later, I started, as we started doing the podcast, and I started getting more into getting various books, and I always liked the First Edition thing, but then I realized at some point that there was something better than the First Edition. And that was the Reader's ARC.
I got something better than the Reader's ARC, and that is the Word document manuscript.
Oh yeah,
which we've got the edits, like just the crazy edits that we went through.
That was crazy too, because were you in New York? Yeah, you were in New York when we wrote Extreme Ownership, and we had to edit that thing. And I remember spending 4 hours on the phone going through final edits. We'd be like, all right, page 64. Hey, you said this, what do you think? And you'd be like, oh yeah, we need to change. So we would just sit there and manually go through for hours on the phone these stupid edits, And what's interesting is, and we were talking about this the other day, there was one of the last edits that we did, we kind of got out the clenched fist of editing and just started cutting stuff, we started getting rid of stuff. That was pretty cool.
It'll be interesting to see, I think particularly if you think about decades from now and what that might be like. A friend of mine showed me, obviously that stuff becomes quite valuable to collectors and to people that know, it's meaningful to people that it has, that understand the value of what it is and how rare it is. And a friend of mine had showed me a copy it was a biography of Stonewall Jackson. And he handed it to me. It was old and kind of brittle. I felt like it was going to fall apart. I opened it up, and it's this G. Patton.
Dang.
It was Patton's personal copy, totally annotated, like noted, like all the notes in the margins. Something that General Patton went through and noted. It was pretty awesome.
That is awesome. I have all the books that I've covered in the podcast with all the tabs and notes and red lines and highlights and everything. And it's freaking cool to sit there and go back, because I'll go back and look at a book that I already covered on the podcast. I'm like, I didn't even come close to getting like everything out of this that I need to get out of this, with the old breed, especially the early podcasts where they weren't as long. Mm-hmm. And now I look at it, I go, man, we could dig right back into that thing, right back into that thing.
You did. Speaking of Pat, you did War as I Knew It as well, which I gave you that copy.
You gave me that copy. Yeah, it's signed by Leif Babin,
not by General Patton. Not quite as valuable.
I have a copy of War as I Knew It, and it is signed by Leif Babin, and I am damn proud of that.
Disappointing.
Yeah, when you posted the copy that I originally gave you of About Face the other day, and it had my because you made me sign it. you were like, hey, bro, you need to sign this. And I was kind of like, whatever.
You're
What
like,
are you talking
whatever.
What are you talking
Yeah.
about?
I was like, bro, you give somebody a book, you need to sign the book, and I'll put a date in it, you know?
Yeah, I'd never give presents to anyone, and so or gifts of any kind, and I'd never given anything to anybody, really. Have I ever given you anything, Echo?
Books.
Oh yeah, so I've given you some books. I just gave you About Face.
Yeah.
All right. So, anyways, but when you asked me, I don't come from the background of giving things.
On the scale of gift givers, like Jocko is, if 10 is greatest, 1 is the least. Jocko is like 0.02.
Jamie, Cover and Move, Cochran sent my oldest daughter flowers for her birthday, whatever, a year ago or something like that, from me. And my daughter did not even remotely believe it for 1 second.
Yeah.
She was like, who did you get to send me flowers? And I was like, oh, Jamie. I can't lie. Can't lie to my daughter. So there you go. Pretty cool. So yeah, I did sign your book, and then we reenacted the signing of the book, and I put the same thing. So there you go. All right. Echo Charles. Speaking of getting better,
Yes.
you said, then you started asking us questions. Do you have any more questions
No.
for the crew here?
No. That was more of my takeaway. That's how I was regarding this book the whole time. Like, that's your little treasure that you found finally after your journey, you know?
I wonder what's going to happen now. Like, once this comes out, is Stackpole Books going to reissue it, or is Jocko Publishing?
Somebody's going to dig their like grandfather's copy out, and there's going to be 9 of them on the internet.
I'll
for
buy 'em.
$750 each.
Yeah, I'll buy them. Do you know how much a old hardcover copy of About Face is? Like, they were on Amazon the other day. Now you can buy it. They were $200.
Yeah. I saw
$200. I have 20 copies. All right, there we go.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. All right. Getting better. Right. We're on the path. Okay. We're getting better, even if we're good, by the way. Like, what do you call?
We're maintaining vigilance.
Yes, big time, for sure. But anyway, on our road of improvement is what we're doing. Okay, we're working out every day. All right, Leif, not to put you too much on the spot, but do you work out every day?
I try to.
Okay, so that was my answer too, which, that's a non-answer, by the way, because there's varying levels of try. Not to say that that's, I'm not saying
Yeah,
that's
listen,
what you're saying.
the goal is work out every day. Sometimes I achieve that on a weekly basis. Cool, I knocked it out. Other times, life gets in the way. But the days that I miss workouts, it's deeply regretful, and when you don't do that, it's a problem.
Yeah, and I actually, you got to kind of be honest. Where if that's the goal, like for real goal, to work out every day, that is a good thing, as opposed to like, hey, I'm gonna try to work out this week. There's a difference, is what I'm saying. So hey, man.
Well, there's a big difference between I'm going to try and work out every day and I'm going to work out every day.
Yes, sir. Yeah, and then
if you want to talk about just keeping it real
over
here.
Yeah, and as far as better and worse goes, for sure. Anyway, so when we work out every single day.
Oh, is this a conversation we're going to have with Leif and not Jocko? Is that what's happening? Because that's what I'm feeling.
I think it's wildly unnecessary to have it with you at this time. I'd rather
Go
tell
ahead,
you how your joints will jam you up if you let them. I'm not going to talk too much about this right now. I don't even think
appreciate that.
I don't think we should. Anyway, I don't think we should even think about it that much, right? At all. Joints should be a thing you don't think about. You see what I'm saying?
Good point. I see where you're going with this, and I like it.
Yeah. What should we be thinking about? Gains, obvious.
Yes.
So let the joints just be joints. You see what I'm saying? Anyway, so if the joints are monopolizing your attention, here's what you do. Boom. Jocko Fuel Joint Warfare. These are for your joints.
For sure.
Super Krill Oil for your joints.
I take both every day.
For sure.
Every day, right?
You know what? Actually, I had an eye surgery recently, and so I had to stop taking it for a little bit. And like, I know it. What's crazy about those is when you stop taking them, like,
why'd they stop taking? Why'd they tell you to stop taking them?
They didn't actually tell me to, but like I just didn't take them for like 3 or 4 days. Oh,
because you were like laid up and whatever.
Not really laid up, but just like I got out.
You were off your routine.
I was off my routine.
Got it.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it was like I feel it. I definitely feel it. And there's it ain't just the It's real. It really is, man. You feel the joints, and I think both Criollo and Joint Warfare are awesome. Definitely.
Yeah, man, it just keeps you kind of boom on the path in that way. So boom, yeah, don't worry about joints anymore. You don't have to, is what I'm saying. Anyway, another thing you don't want to be worrying about is getting sick, because that's one of those things. Let's face it, we're not every day like fighting to boost our immune system or something like this.
Maybe we are.
Maybe not.
I know I am.
Not consciously. Okay, so when you wake
this
up,
is going to be rough.
oh yeah, well, you brought it up.
Apparently
You brought it up.
someone's
You brought it
fired
up,
up.
Jocko. So at 4 a.m., whenever you wake up, are you like, okay, let me get this immune boosting scenario cracking right
It's
now?
part of my routine.
It's consciously part of your routine.
Consciously part of my routine. I have my supplements lined up when I go in to brush my teeth
Okay,
in the morning.
doesn't count.
I do what I'm supposed to do.
Totally doesn't count.
When I go in to brush my teeth at night, I do what I'm supposed to do. That includes both brushing my teeth, taking my supplementation, and flossing, which I never flossed until I joined the Navy. They told me to floss. I started flossing.
All right, cool. Cool.
Do you take supplements pre-workout?
Yes.
Yeah, me too.
Yep.
What are you taking?
I take 3 Super Krill, 3 Joint Warfare, and vitamin D.
Oh, like for the pre-workout, you mean? Like for the workout?
No, it's
different. Yeah.
not for the workout.
No, but
before.
prior to,
Yes,
yeah.
I do.
Yeah.
Yep.
Is that what you were asking?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
is that when you take them rather than do you take something before the workout for the workout? That's two different questions.
I'll slam some Discipline Go usually before the workout, but I
Yeah.
definitely, usually no, it's good. I just was curious.
Yeah, I do. I take it every morning. It's part of my routine, and then at night. And we had this whole. I do not want to talk about this right now, but Echo did not have a routine, and therefore he would miss.
Yes.
Just like you just said, Leif. You got out of your routine, and you miss. Like that's a real thing. Set up a routine, follow it,
Yeah, and that's
and
the
then
thing.
vary it sometimes to make sure the terrorists aren't tracking you. All good.
Side note, yeah, good idea. Yeah, and when you
Very
fall out
routines.
of the routine, workout or taking the the supplementation, as we like to say, that can sort of become the routine. You see what I'm saying? Or part of it.
It is.
Not even thinking about it. All right. Well, anyway, back to the immune system thing. So technically, you're just like, hey, I'm going to go ahead and take this stuff so I don't have to worry about my immune system kind of thing. You're not consciously Look, I'm not splitting hairs here, but it's significant.
Kind of.
Is what it's significant. Is
Okay.
what I think. Anyway, immune system, my ultimate point with that is you don't have to worry about that either.
No.
Vitamin D3.
And Cold
From
War.
Jocko Fuel. And Cold War. Boom. The combo. Now you're really not worrying about it. Anyway, also, after you're done not worrying about these things you don't have to worry about, now let's start with the conscious stuff. Okay, we got discipline, right? Good. Really good. Helps you think. I would say think. But here's what I noticed about discipline. Where it's one of those ones where, you know how like when you go somewhere, like you always want to have a little drink going, whether it be water or whatever. I think this is the best thing for that.
I agree.
Maybe not before we go to bed or whatever, but
Yeah, not
technically
before we go
that's
to
it.
bed.
Yeah. Anyway, yeah, I saw you pound that.
I
by
just
the
crushed-
way, I watched you.
I just crushed 2 of these, dude. This is my new.
You were notably smarter this entire podcast. I noticed it.
Are you saying the bar wasn't very high? Yeah. I gotta say, I am not a sour apple guy. Like if I was a kid eating Jolly Ranchers, like I would leave the sour apples there. Unlike JP Deneau, sour apple sniper is legit.
Yeah,
that is it's awesome.
My family actually is all over the map.
I mean, don't get me wrong, Dak Savage.
Oh, is Dak Savage your go-to?
Dak Savage has been my go-to for a while, but Sour Apple Sniper is awesome, and I gotta give JP credit for that. It's legit. It's awesome.
Yeah, I'm kind of with your family on that one. Where here's what I found, and this might be the case for others. That's the only reason I'm mentioning it. So remember, when it first came out, I was like, man, this is the best one. A little bit better than Jocko Palmer.
What?
Straight up.
Yeah, I
Yep.
know.
So that's what I
hear
thought.
a lot of that. And you know what's funny is people like say it to me
Like you're all.
in either one of 2 ways. One is like, hey, I kind of like the Sour Apple Sniper. Like they kind of ashamed to tell me.
Yeah.
And then the other one's like, Sour Apple Sniper's way better.
Yeah. That's what you get.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So-
but I did find out there's like a deeper game within the game. It was
Check
probably
out,
better.
homie.
It was probably better because it was new, straight up. Because I kept pounding
Plus
them.
it's sweet.
Yeah.
Here, and I'll tell you something else. Just to people might be thinking about this. I want to drink this stuff all day long.
Yeah.
I want to drink Jocko Palmer. I want to drink it all day long. But it does have caffeine in it, 95 milligrams caffeine. So I don't want to drink 7 Discipline Goes. So we are making a Discipline Go type drink that doesn't have any caffeine, and it's going to be a ginger ale flavor, a ginger flavor. Yeah. And I've already approved the taste of it.
Oh dang.
And
okay.
it's really good. And what's cool about it is it's on the sweet side. I have to admit, the Sour Apple Sniper kind of started making me started leaning me a little bit more sweetness. So the ginger is it's nice sweet, but here's what makes me think about it is at night, you get done with eating your tomahawk steak.
Sure. Hell yeah.
And you have a little sweet tooth, but you're too full for a mulk. Because let's face it, we could go just straight to mulk, get your dessert on, but you're a little bit full. The tomahawk was bigger than normal, but you want to have a little sweetness.
Yeah.
Crack it open.
Boom. There you go. Decaf.
Yeah, decaf. So we're working it.
Okay. Good. Well, there it is. There's also Discipline Powder. By the way, Leif, you mentioned pre-workout. That's my go-to pre-workout too. The Discipline Powder with water most of the time.
We actually were talking about this. Like that, the Discipline Powder is awesome.
What flavor do you like?
Lemon lime.
Dang.
Is legit.
Because Jocko Palmer powder is freaking legit. The other day it was super hot here in SoCal.
It is good, for sure.
And I mixed up a pitcher like they do in Texas, bro. A big glass pitcher. I filled it up with ice, put the Jocko Palmer in there, and it was a huge amount. And I just drank that thing all day. It was freaking awesome. So get your Jocko Palmer on.
Oh yeah, agree.
My recommendation. Get
also,
some mulk on.
You know what's cool about that? I think with the powders you can dilute it a little bit,
right,
so you can have the entire picture.
I have a problem.
All good.
Like many Americans, the problem that many Americans, myself included, have is simply stated, more is better. So I like mix these things. What's these things called, Echo? These glass things.
Travel mugs?
No.
Wait, what do you mean the glass
tumbler?
things?
A tumbler. So I get these tumblers, and let's face it, you only need 2 scoops of Discipline into one of these tumblers.
Well, in your case,
but
2 of
I
these
will
tumblers,
I will no doubt put 4 scoops in there. More is better. And it doesn't need it, but you just think, I might as well just get that extra little later.
Yeah, man.
I know it's going to be a good time at the muster when we've got a tumbler up there on the stage mixed up, and you're drinking at the bottom of it. You're just getting all powder.
Pure.
Let's get some. We're about to fire this thing up.
Pure get some. Yeah, that's sweet. Okay, let's just talk about that for 1 second. Okay, the early musters where we were disorganized on the back end, we had a lot of stuff to learn, and so we would sleep not at all. I remember the New York muster, we slept 1 hour one night, if that.
And the next night we got like an hour and 45 minutes.
And everyone says, you're cognitive. If you sleep less than 5 hours, it's like you're drunk. Have you ever heard that?
Yeah.
If you sleep less than 5 hours, it's like you're drunk. You're a hazard to humanity. Meanwhile, you and I are up on stage for 7 straight hours that day, answering questions. People are coming at us with all kinds of leadership problems. And I didn't hear you up there going, I'll tell you what, you son of a bitch. Like, how do they come up with that? Who's the scientist that says, you're drunk if you slept less than, and look, I'm not trying to get crazy here. And, for everyone that freaks out about this, in Discipline Equals Freedom Field Manual, I explain sleep is necessary. I get it. It's good for you. It's healthy. I tell everyone, get as much sleep as you can. I'm totally down for the cause. Sleep. It's great. Mm-hmm. But to go and say, hey, if you don't get 8 hours, you're a drunk. You're an equivalent of being drunk and on acid.
Think about in Ramadi, man. We're launching on Cop Falcon. We're going into South Central Ramadi. Neither you or I had slept at all.
Yeah.
We've been up for 24 hours at that point, and we're launching on an operation where we're going to be out on the battlefield for 48 hours. So it's like, what do? You just power through. Like
BTF.
You just BTF. When we got into position and I got security set, like I tried to take her down for an hour, just to try to get some shut eye while it was dark before the sun came up. We knew we were going to get it on as we got attacked. But life requires that you're going to have some sleepless nights, and you got to be able to get some. And
you can get some more if you have some little bit of discipline go,
had
whatever.
we had some discipline go on the Cobb Falcon op, we'd have been that much better.
I think Ramadi would have been secured a lot quicker.
I think the drunk reference comparison was like when you're driving.
Yeah. Okay. So now if they take the number of accidents that happen from people that are drunk to the number of people that fall asleep at the wheel. Okay. Cool. Got it.
In a way.
Yeah, I got it.
In a way,
Understood.
being like overly tired driving could. Then again, I don't know.
Could be worse.
Everybody's different. Could be
people fall
worse.
asleep at the wheel.
Because and you can't control it. You get to a point where you can control it. Like being drunk, because it's, let's face it. Sometimes when people are drunk behind the wheel, they get like more daring and aggressive. So they'll, it's less that like, they're drunk and they drift and crash.
You're saying it's their attitude more than their
They're
motor skills.
speeding, they're this, and then
But
sure, a lot of times you can't react as fast.
But you're talking about lack of sleep, so it's kind of like leaving Nyland at like 2:00 in the morning for the Red Bull run.
Yep.
And had we had some discipline go back then,
obviously
we'd be that much better.
We would have been
no
much more
sugar.
squared away.
We'd have been good to go.
Yep. So hey, and
right.
again, not to split hairs, but these things sometimes, you add a little nuance, little explanation, they start to make more sense.
Yep.
Was what I think. Is what I
All
believe.
right. What else we got? Jocko
Okay.
White Tea, Warrior Kid Mulk. What else? Anything else? Bunch of cool stuff.
Yeah.
And by the way, you can get them at
supplementation
originmain.com. You can also get them at the Vitamin Shop. And
Yes.
you can get them at a little place called Wawa in Florida, in the Virginia area. And by the way, if you're in those areas, go get some.
Yeah.
Go into a Wawa, clean it out.
Yeah, it's a different situation. Like I mentioned before, is it? Because look, online, even if you got to go, Vitamin Shop's not as convenient store-ish. Like they're not everywhere or whatever. But it's a different situation. You got to go on there. You got to make it a point to stock up and all this stuff, bro. Now you can just grab one on the go. It's way different.
Here's what the folks at Wawa are wondering: who wants this stuff? Should they put it in every store in America? That's what they're wondering, or every store that they have. If you want to, you can support the cause. Just clean them out. Let them know we want.
Yes.
We want.
It is in demand.
It is in demand.
As far as that goes. All right. Also,
else?
yes. Okay. You mentioned originmain.com. That's where you can get Jocko Fuel, which is all of this stuff. Also at originmain.com is jiu-jitsu stuff, gis, rash guards, some shirts on there, and also, of course, jeans and boots, American made.
Delta Denim's back in the game, by the way. If you were waiting on Delta jeans, they're back, and we got more denim. So we're good.
Very good.
I got my Lincoln boots getting broken in right now.
Nice.
They're legit.
Nice.
What do you mean Lincoln boots?
That's the one with the toe cap.
Oh, that's the model.
Did you request the toe cap, or did you just get it from Pete? He just sent you what he wants.
Yeah.
Pete, you got to watch out, dude. Pete is sneaky. Pete tries to impose his will on you. Like I was like, no, I don't want the toe cap. I don't. I was like, no, don't give me the Lincolns. Just give me the regular ones. And he goes, yeah. And what shows up at my house? The regular ones and a pair of Lincolns.
Yep.
And I'm like, bro. Yep. He does these little sneaky things, and he thinks he's getting one over on you. That's the thing. Pete, we're tracking, bro. We are tracking. He likes to do that.
I like the toe cap. It's good.
Oh, here's another thing he did to me. I said, hey, bro, I wear white gis. So, this was pretty early into the whole
thing
merger. Sure. And he's like, oh, yeah, definitely. What does he send me? And I said, you know what? In a stretch, maybe a black gi.
Why is that, by the way?
Tradish.
It's the tradish.
It's the tradish. The first gi he sends me, no shit, it's blue. The only color where I said, hey, look, just don't send me a blue gi because I wear a white gi. Right. Maybe I get it black. You know what the most popular color gi is?
At
Origin.
Oh.
Which means yes in the world.
Black.
Yeah, it's black.
Yeah.
Which to me, white was the tradish. That's what we do. We keep it tradish. But let's face it. What's the facts? The facts is everybody wants to be a ninja. That's what it is. They're having a little.
Yeah, makes sense.
For me, I want to be Charles Bronson in the movie The Mechanic. They're wearing white gis. Okay. And that's what I always refer back to in my mind.
Some of my training partners and instructors, I've I've sent them as a gift a Origin Rift gi, and I think we're 6 for 6 for black.
Yeah.
The black Rifts.
Yeah. Did you request white?
No. I said, tell me what you want.
Oh, okay.
And,
yeah. There
they
you go.
said,
They all wanted.
send me a black one.
Yeah.
Well, that means a lot coming from Todd White, right? Because he's an artist. He understands the color palette.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? He's down there thinking, what will look good?
I gotta say though, for the refs, we've also got 6 out of 6 like outstanding reviews as well.
The Rift is ridiculous.
Yeah, it's kind of junk, not the gi, but the situation, because a lot of us, we have more than just the one gi. So you do the Rift, now all those other gis sort of seem obsolete a little bit. Like you don't want to put that dumb thing back on, the old ones.
Yeah,
But
it's
that's just how.
it's
But
like
Pete-
the new iPhone. When you get the new iPhone, you're kind of like, well, this is it happened with the iPhone, not the 6, the 11. No, seriously. The iPhone 6, you're like, oh, it's okay, and the battery would run out, and the pictures sucked, and all this stuff. I was with Joe Rogan like last year, and we were taking pictures of the sunset while we were hunting.
Yeah.
His picture looked freaking. He had an iPhone 11. It looked brilliant, filled with colors. It looked like a freaking National Geographic picture because we were taking a picture of the sunset, so you could see like the mountains, and then there was the horizon, and then there was the sky, all beautiful colors. My picture just looked like black on the bottom and white on top, and I just said, I'm an idiot.
They call that dynamic range.
Yeah.
So
Photography.
what you're saying is you don't realize how good something can be until you actually try out the new one. And I think it like Tasking and Bruiser. I was like, I thought we were pretty good in my first Tasking it until we were in Bruiser. And like, actually, we weren't that good. Tasking and Bruiser's better. And the Rift is definitely like that. When you roll it, you're like, okay, I'm not rolling anything else.
It's kind of a game changer.
But Pete, I don't think he's sneaky. I think, he's sneaky,
No,
but I think
I'm
he's
telling you.
like smart. He in that way, because look, this is what I was with you with the
big
gi
difference.
thing.
Big difference.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I agree with you. There's a difference. So the gi, right? So I wasn't down for the other color gis either. All I had was white for a reason,
Bro.
Like I'm like,
Because you're one of my black belts.
one of the people. Yeah, it was true. But here's what Pete was thinking. This is my hypothesis. He was like, look, I get it. They like the white gi. That's the tradition. You can't argue with that. But they just haven't felt the power, the pleasure of the black gi. They just, if I can get them to somehow feel what I'm feeling about this.
Okay.
So he'll give you a free
I
one.
see
You'll
what
be
you're
like, I
saying.
can't wear this thing. And you put it on. You're like,
I feel like
maybe
a ninja.
I can wear
Maybe
this
I am a
thing.
ninja after
Exactly
all.
right. Pete is successful. Boom. Did that with the boots for you.
Pete gets some level of credit for his sneakiness. But just so you know, Pete Roberts, listening to this, I'm seeing your moves, bro.
Yes, sir.
I'm seeing your moves. You're not getting anything by me. I get it.
Yep.
Keep it up, Pete.
Yeah.
Keep it up, yes, 100%. Also, what do we have? Oh, okay, Jocko has a store. It's called Jocko Store. We got some new stuff on there, by the way. Hoodies are back in, by the way. That was a big
Hey,
item.
look at this. For winter time.
Yes, sir. Yes, yeah.
Do you know the last season? You know when we got sweatshirts? May. Yeah.
Well, we're trying to, tighten things up a little bit.
You know what I'm pretty stoked about at the Jocko store is the board shorts.
Yes, sir. Yeah, those kind of are coming for fall, winter too, which is kind of offbeat. But hey, man, look,
we're happy.
It's a process.
Look, I've been asking for them for 3.5 years, so
Yes, sir.
I'm glad they're there.
There we go. Yeah, exactly right. Yeah, they're pretty good. They run a little bit loose though. The board shorts, a little bit loose. They run.
That's good. That's good for me.
Yep.
Yep.
There you go. Yeah.
I don't. You got to squeeze the tree trunk legs into. You can't be doing the skinny jeans, skinny board shorts. It doesn't work.
Yeah, that is
You
a
want
good
to give
point.
yourself
Thank
a little bit of room.
Yeah, and some stuff on there coming up too as well. So if also we have an email list on there if you want to sign up to get notifications for new stuff.
What, you didn't know the word notification? Is that what just happened?
No, I was about to say like if you want a notify. You know how you use the wrong word for the wrong context. Anyway, I was what do you call dotting my I's, crossing my T's. You see what I'm saying?
Like it.
Nonetheless, JockoStore.com. You want to represent while you're on this path? That's where you do it. Also, subscribe to the podcast if you haven't already on your iTunes and wherever you listen to podcasts.
Yeah. This is not the only podcast we have, by the way. We also have Jocko Unraveling, which I do with Daryl Cooper, Martyr Made fame. Of Martyr Made fame. There you go, Daryl. Grounded podcast, which is about Jiu-Jitsu Warrior Kid podcast. We got a little bit of time. I'm going to squeeze in some Warrior Kid podcasts in the near future. We got a YouTube channel. And if you want to subject yourself to videos where Echo Charles has complete creative control to make everything blow up, everything catch on fire, then you can check it out. And if as long as it's a video less than 5 minutes, there may be cool stuff. If it's a long video that actually would be nice to see some effects in, they won't be there. No. Okay.
Anyway, yes, and you can see what Leif looks like if you're not, or if you're intrigued by his Texas Batman persona, voice-wise.
Good times.
Appropriate way to put it.
We got something called Psychological Warfare. It's an album with tracks that I talk to you about overcoming your moments of weakness. You can get that on any MP3 platform out there in the world. Mm-hmm. It was the #1 selling spoken word album for 11 months on iTunes.
Yeah. And it makes sense. It makes sense because it's not just artistically good or whatever. It's effective functionally.
Yeah.
How many spoken word albums are there?
A ton
is the question.
There's a ton. Yeah, there's thousands.
I will say this. There's something in the universe where sometimes, you know how you're like, if your Bluetooth's on your phone, it just randomly syncs up with your car. And like at my kind of darkest or lowest moments, like it seems to like sync up and just randomly select. And it's Jocko's voice, and it's usually at max volume.
Everything happens for a reason.
Yeah.
You have that moment of weakness creeping in, or you're probably heading to the donut shop when that thing comes on. Also, Flipside Canvas. My brother Dakota Meyer, flipsidecanvas.com. He's making graphic representations of the path and other basically cool stuff. I know we got some coming to the office.
Badass stuff coming from Flipside.
Which ones you
got? We've got Good.
Check.
And we've got Discipline Equals Freedom. We got all kinds of. We got Default Aggressive.
We're just going hot.
And we've got a bunch of posters as well of the muster and of Echelon Front. Impacting with troopers.
You mean you didn't get a poster that had like an outstretched hand on the cliff and another hand going to it, and it says underneath, teamwork. You know those posters, like the freaking.
You mean like the poster with the wolf howling and it says leadership on it?
Yeah, those posters. At Flipside Canvas, we do not sell those posters. We sell posters that can only be described with one word: legit. So there you go.
The posters are legit, and Dakota and Mandy on the team are awesome to work with.
We got some books about face. First edition with the foreword by me, which is just freaking an honor to be able to do. We got the code, the evaluation, the protocol, leadership strategy and tactics field manual, Warrior Kid, Way of the Warrior Kid 1, 2, and 3. By the way, Way of the Warrior Kid 4. You can pre-order it right now.
Oh, damn.
It's called Way of the Warrior. Do you know what the name of the new Way of the Warrior Kid is? You might know.
Yes.
Do you know what it is?
I do not.
It's called Way of the Warrior Kid 4 Field Manual. Premise is the last day of school. Mark's been having some hard years, but now he's kind of getting dialed in. Last day of school, kid comes up to him and says, hey, I've never really talked to you before. And I noticed, you wear that Warrior Kid. I see you doing pull-ups with your friends. And this kid's kind of shy, and he says, I really wanted to be a Warrior Kid like you, and now it's too late because I'm moving away. And I wish I could have hung out with you. And so Uncle Jake shows up, and Mark tells Uncle Jake about this and says, hey, I feel really bad. This kid's moving away. He wanted to be a Warrior Kid. He was too shy to say anything, and he's wanted me to help him, but I don't know what I could do. And Uncle Jake says, I know what you can do. Write him a field manual on how to be a Warrior Kid. So there you go. And it's the same, let's say, shape and size as the Discipline Equals Freedom field manual. Mm-hmm. You may notice some similarities when it comes to the layout. Yeah. Just the layout of the cover. Yeah. It's funny. John Bozak,
sure,
the artist, the designer. Whenever I say like a good idea, he always says, I think you might be on to something there. So I was explaining the cover, like Warrior Kid's in here, and he goes, I think you might be on to something there. So yeah, so Way of the Warrior Kid 4 is available. Mikey and the Dragons, which has been described as the greatest children's book ever written. That's what I've heard.
Sure.
I mean, look, I wrote it. I don't want to, be out of line here, but it apparently a lot of people think. A lot of people think.
Yep.
A lot of people think. And the Discipline Equals Freedom Field Manual. Oh, by the way, there's a new version of that coming out. You know what it's called? Mark 1 Mod 1. Do you know what that means?
Kind of. Yeah, some cameras are like that. That's why you go Mark 1, Mark 2, Mark 3.
So this is the first modification to the original Discipline Equals Freedom Field Manual. There's a bunch of new pages in there, wrote about a bunch of new things. So you can check that out. And then, of course, there's a little book called Extreme Ownership that I wrote with my brother Leif Babin. And the follow-up to that book, which is called The Dichotomy of Leadership. The things that you heard us talking about today, if you want to see how to take those things and apply them to what you're doing in life, whether it's your business, whether it's your a first responder, whatever you're doing, if you're interacting with other human beings, get to the source. Extreme Ownership and the Dichotomy of Leadership. Echelon Front. What's up with Echelon Front, Leif? What do you got?
Got a lot going on with Echelon Front. Working with leaders all the time. And as we talked about, it's just been phenomenal to watch them, particularly through these tough times of, some economic turmoil through COVID lockdowns and unrest riots across America, et cetera. Like it's been awesome to see companies take and apply those principles. And so we've got some great stuff going on at Echelon Front. I think particularly for EF Online, we have redesigned that thanks to the great Echo Charles, who put some mastery behind that for our landing page and design and setup. And we've streamlined the process of login on that thing. And we've got troopers from, I think,
I'm glad you get the great Echo Charles. I seem to end up with the average Echo Charles over here.
I think we're I think
Are you happy with that? Is that a good joke?
Like check.
That? Cool.
I think we have 46 countries around the world represented right now.
Yeah, EF Online, what we're doing is our goal, our mission at Echelon Front is to teach the leadership lessons that we learned on the battlefield that we translate into everyday business, everyday life, how to lead up and down the chain of command. It doesn't matter if you're the CEO or a frontline person that's not in charge of anyone. When you are interacting with other human beings, you are in a leadership position. You can do things to improve the mission. You can do things that will improve your station in life. Go to efonline.com. We got courses about this stuff. We do live training all the time. If you want to ask me a question, if you want to ask Leif a question about something he said today, go on there. Go to efonline.com for that. We are standing by to help spread the word. We have the muster. The muster there's only one this year due to COVID. And it is going to be in Dallas, Texas, December 3rd and 4th. I just did a gig and there's 500 people there. There's social distancing happening. So it's going to be something like that.
We'll take precautions, but the muster's on.
Yeah, the muster's on.
We are super excited to meet with troopers. It's been such a bummer to have canceled two of them.
Yeah.
But I'm really excited to have this one here in December in Dallas.
Here's another bummer is that since we canceled the other two, most people at the other two transferred their tickets to this one, which means it's going to sell out like they always do. So if you want to come, just try and register early. It's extremeownership.com. And we also have EF Overwatch. From day one, we've had people asking us, hey, where can we get people that understand these leadership principles? Eventually, we started this company, EF Overwatch. Go to efoverwatch.com. We got Mike Sorelli at the helm. If you heard him on podcast 244, him and George Randall, they geek out about hiring and getting people into companies, taking leaders, military leaders that understand these principles, train in these principles, and then show up at companies and help you lead your company to victory. Go to efoverwatch.com. And if you want to help service members active service members, retired service members, their families, Gold Star families around the world, then you can check out Mark Lee's mom. She has a charity organization, Mama Lee. If you want to donate or get involved, then you can go check out americasmightywarriors.org. And if you're a masochist, if you like pain and you just want more of my discordant declarations, or if you want more punishment in the form of Echo's disoriented diatribes, or you want to get some more of Leif's prolonged proclamations, then you can find us on the interwebs. Leif is on Twitter, at Leif Babin. He's on Instagram, which Echo will only refer to as the Gram, at Real Leif Babin. And he's on Facebook at Leif Babin. And, of course, Echo is at Echo Charles. And I am at Jocko Willink. And thanks to General Bruce Clark for your service to our great nation, for your leadership and guidance that continues to have an impact today. And thanks to all of our servicemen and women who are out there leading and also having an impact in the world by protecting our freedom. And of course, to police and law enforcement and firefighters and paramedics and EMTs and dispatchers and correctional officers and Border Patrol and Secret Service and all other first responders, thank you for protecting and keeping us safe here at home. And to everyone else out there, remember these lessons from General Clark. Remember that the commander must be a model soldier. He must master the technique of war. He must expand and improve his knowledge. He must exhibit daily stamina and courage. And above all, he must set the example. And you set the example every day by going out there and getting after it. And until next time, this is Leif and Echo and Jocko. Out.